Roman slave owner. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 176. Portia, a 7 or 8-year-old child, was taking care of his younger siblings. His younger siblings were not even 5 years old, and they were just the right age to be very troublesome. When little Memmius saw Memmius coming back, he immediately rushed over happily, because today Memmius promised to teach his son swordsmanship, and little Memmius had longed for swordsmanship. "You take care of your younger siblings first, and I will weave these fences into shields first," Memmius said, touching his head. "It's okay, I'll take care of them while I watch," little Memmius said excitedly. Memmius smiled and shook his head, and finally agreed. So he weaved these fences and weaved them into a fence shield. The Roman army used fence shields and wooden swords during training, and the weight was twice that of standard shields and iron swords, which could better train the soldiers' arm strength. And when they used real shields and iron swords, they were more powerful. Of course, because little Memmius was too young, he decided to weave the fence shield into a slightly lighter one than the standard shield. And of course the same was true for the wooden sword. Little Memmius watched excitedly as his father wove the fence into a shield, shouting excitedly from time to time, as if he was watching the most amazing thing in the world, which filled Memmius with an inexplicable sense of accomplishment. Although his brothers and sisters didn't quite understand why their brother was so excited, it didn't affect them from joining the screaming team at all, and the whole yard was full of vitality. Not long after Memmius had woven a fence shield, he tested the weight and found that it was slightly lighter than the standard shield, so he handed it to little Memmius. "How about trying it? It feels about the same, a little heavy," little Memmius said. "It's just a little heavy." After saying that, Memmius stood up. He sat in the backyard, and took out a human-shaped wooden stake. This human-shaped wooden stake was slightly taller than little Memmius, and he handed it to little Memmius. "The first lesson of becoming a new soldier is to nail this wooden stake into the ground. This is something every soldier must do by hand," Memmius said with a serious face. "I know," little Memmius said with shining eyes. From today on, he was a soldier. After that, little Memmius went back to the house and fished out a hammer that was taller than him. The corners of Memmius' mouth twitched, but he still held the human-shaped wooden stake and let little Memmius hammer it down into the ground with his own hands. Memmius wiped the sweat off his face with difficulty. He felt more tired than nailing it into the ground with his own hands. He almost hit his hand with several hammers just now. "Take up your sword and shield, soldier," Memmius said. "Yes, father." Little Memmius picked up the wooden sword and shield. "As a soldier, the two most important things are the formation, which I have already taught you, and the other is how to use the weapon, on the battlefield. Do you know how to kill them quickly?" Memmius asked. "Yes, stab," little Memmius said proudly. Almost everyone in this village knew it. "That's right, it's stabbing." Many of our enemies wear armor, and slashing is easily blocked by armor, and it is also easy to get stuck in people's bones. Only stabbing can quickly kill your enemy. And when slashing, your right arm will be exposed due to excessive movement, but it won't be when stabbing. We have several main targets for stabbing. One is the head. Memmius patted the head of the human-shaped wooden stake, and the neck and ribs, and other places that are not protected by armor. The reason why we use human-shaped wooden stakes is that only human-shaped wooden stakes can train the best soldiers. Only through them can you understand where to stab and how to stab. "I understand, father," little Memmius said excitedly. "Next, I will teach you how to stab the head of the wooden stake." Then Memmius taught him the stabbing action. Not long after, the clever little Memmius completely learned this action under the constant correction of his father. Wielding a wooden sword that was almost like a real sword, it didn't take long for little Memmius to be out of breath. Memmius watched all this tenderly, and couldn't help but recall his glorious years. Not long after, Fabia called them to eat. Little Memmius cheered, threw the wooden sword to the ground, and rushed to the dining room. Memmius laughed and scolded, packed up the wooden sword and came to the dining room. At this time, little Memmius and a slave had already sat at the dining table. Like a little greedy cat, waiting for Fabia to serve the meal. In ordinary Roman families, slaves had a relatively high status. They were like precious property and were carefully protected. Fabia and another slave quickly brought the meal up: plain wheat porridge, some cheese and a few large slices of bread, in addition to some vegetables. After sitting at the head, Memmius said, "Let's eat." Everyone quickly started eating. There will be a meeting in the church tomorrow, and it is said that gifts will be given according to the number of people. How about I take little Memmius and the two of them together? Fabia said excitedly. The church holds a gathering every market day and distributes some small gifts. Fabia has received a lot of food and daily necessities. Whatever, Memmius said. Although he has not had much contact with the Holy Church, he feels that the Holy Church has a very positive outlook and people are very kind. Dragon City. Little Levi giggled and ran around in the garden. A little girl stared at him in a stroller and cheered. The little girl's name is Portia, the daughter of Levi and Cybele. Although Cybele wanted to have a boy, Levi liked this girl very much. After all, a daughter is a father's sweet little cotton-padded jacket. Levi watched all this happily. At this moment, he even forgot all his plans. It would be great if time could stop at this moment forever. The biggest change in Dragon City in the past 3 years is the addition of a church. Under Levi's order, all orphans collectively converted to the Holy Church. Many of those retainers and members of the guard team also joined the church. With sufficient funds, the church trained many priests and missionaries, and then began to expand wildly. Levi's first targets were the villages in Campania and Praeneste. In these areas, Levi had great influence, and no one dared to do anything to the church. According to Levi's instructions, the church gave priority to preaching to the elderly and the poor, and distributed small gifts from time to time. These measures have achieved great results. In just 3 years, the Holy Church has 20,000 followers. All things are difficult at the beginning. As long as there are more than 20,000 believers, Levi believes that the church can be quickly expanded. At this time, little Levi suddenly fell down and burst into tears. Chapter 177 Pirates. Levi laughed unscrupulously. Julia rolled her eyes at him, ran over and picked up little Levi. "Baby, are you okay? Why are you so careless? Why don't you let him stand up by himself?" Levi said. "Why do you want him to stand up by himself?" Julia asked curiously. Levi shook his head. "There is no parenting manual now, and many people don't know how to educate children at all. Of course, even in modern times with all kinds of parenting manuals, 90% of people still don't know how to teach children." Levi felt that he should do something and not let Julia spoil the child like this. "If he falls in the future, let him stand up by himself," Levi said seriously. "He is a Roman, he can't be so cowardly." Julia wanted to object, but when she heard the last sentence, she swallowed her objection. "Okay," Julia said unwillingly. "Plautus, how old are your sons?" Levi asked. "The eldest son is 12 years old, the youngest son is 8 years old, and there is a daughter who is 2 years old," Plautus said. Levi shook his head. "Go ask someone in the guards later if there are any who are about the same age as little Levi, and find a few to play with little Levi and the others." In his previous life, he must have studied psychology a little bit, and he couldn't let his son become useless. "Okay," Plautus said dejectedly. It seemed that his daughter had no chance. "Remember, don't control little Levi too much in the future, and leave him time to play with other people of the same age," Levi said. "Got it," Julia said helplessly. Levi was really too much, even depriving her of the joy of being a mother. "Why is that?" At this time, a young man beside him asked curiously. His name was Lysis. He was not only a believer of the Holy Church, but also Levi's adjutant, helping him deal with some tedious affairs. He was promoted by Levi from his retainers, because children need to learn to communicate with other peers as soon as possible, so that they can adapt quickly when they go to school. On the contrary, if the mother occupies her son, the child will not be able to adapt when he goes to school. The consequences of children not being able to adapt to school are terrible, and at least they will become problem children. Levi thought for a while and said. He found that Lysis had picked up a pen and a small notebook to record it, and Levi felt very helpless about this. This Lysis was very diligent and studious, but he liked to write down his words, which made Levi very distressed. Is he planning to write a book of hadith in the future? Julia disagreed. Does her son still need to go to school? Just hire a few teachers. At this time, a soldier rushed in. Admiral, something big happened. What happened? Levi asked. Archjustice Boldness and his entourage were attacked in the Naples area, and the Chief Justice was kidnapped, the soldier said. Hearing this, Levi was shocked. How could this be possible? Naples is also located in the Campania region, which is under his jurisdiction. The Grand Inquisitor is an official second only to the inspector and the consul. After the term of office is over, he will be sent out to serve as the governor of a province. Thinking of this, Levi did not dare to neglect it. Quick, send someone to take a look with me immediately, Levi said. There were still a lot of blood and body parts on the road outside Naples. But when Levi arrived with a large number of soldiers, this place had been blocked. The administrator of Naples had surrounded the place with some guards. After seeing Levi, he was overjoyed. Admiral, you are finally here. He knew the administrator of Naples, named Coponius, and he had dealt with him before. What is the situation here? Levi asked while inspecting the scene. Let him tell us. He is the first to discover the scene. Administrator Coponius was said by a man dressed as a businessman. I am a merchant from Pompeii. 2 days ago, I led a caravan to Naples. As a result, I found a cavalryman asking for help. He said he was a subordinate of the Grand Justice Boldness and was attacked by robbers. When we arrived, the robbers had already retreated, the merchant said with a face full of fear. Who are those robbers? Levi asked. We guess they are pirates, Coponius said. Damn pirates again. Levi couldn't help but frowned. His parents died at the hands of pirates. When Sulla conquered Greece, he was recuperating at the seaside 1 year, and the pirates robbed a small village right in front of him. Those pirates had robbed hundreds of cities and towns, and even Rome was robbed by them. He even defeated the army of the governor of Sicily on the coast. The degree of arrogance was simply lawless. The entire Mediterranean was almost controlled by them. They repeatedly robbed Egyptian grain ships, causing Rome to be quite short of food. This led to the later Pompey's expedition to pirates. Do you know where they are now? Levi asked. It is very likely that they have fled to the sea, Coponius said. Levi frowned. If he wanted to conquer them, he must have a navy. Even if he had the power, he couldn't use it. Why did they capture the Grand Inquisitor? For ransom, Levi asked. It is very likely, Coponius said. It seems that this matter must be reported to Rome. In addition, I hope Rome will allow me to lead the navy of the Allies to suppress the pirates, Levi said. There was no permanent navy during the Roman Republic. Only when there was a war would they build their own navy, such as during the Punic War, or requisition ships from allies. Sulla's fleet was also requisitioned by his treasurer Lucullus alone. Having a permanent navy was a matter after Augustus. Coponius's face changed slightly. It's not necessary. Is it necessary to make such a big fuss? It's a matter of time. In addition, I hope you can check if there are any pirate insiders in Naples. Those pirates found the Grand Inquisitor's itinerary so accurately. I suspect they have informants in Naples, Levi said. The pirate disaster will only get bigger and bigger, and will even merge with Sertorius in Spain and become a major concern for Rome. It would be a good thing if the pirates could be eliminated as soon as possible. Don't worry. I will investigate this matter as soon as possible, Coponius said. That's the best, Livius said. On the vast sea, 2 large ships are moving slowly. One of the 5 row-oared ships has a golden mast standing on the bow. The oars are inlaid with silver, and the sails are dyed expensive purple. You should know that purple dye is the most expensive color in Rome. The dye for a purple cloak requires 15,000 purple shells to extract, which shows how wealthy these pirates are. Lysax stood at the bow in a short coat, holding a bottle of wine in his hand, and was drinking wine in big gulps. Not far from him, a black pirate looked terrified. He slapped his thighs and knelt in front of a Roman soldier. I'm sorry, I didn't know you were the man of the Grand Justice Boldness. Please let me go. I'll be grateful if you can say a few good words to the Grand Justice, the black pirate said sincerely. The Roman soldier was in doubt. Was he kidding? You know, He is now a pirate prisoner. I swear everything I said is true. I can give you freedom now. The black pirate said, he is right. As long as you are willing to forgive us, we can let you go now. At this time, another long-haired white pirate said, looking at the sincere expressions of the two, the Roman soldier believed it a little. After all, Rome is the overlord of the Mediterranean. How dare some small pirates offend them? Not to mention that they are the men of the Roman Grand Justice. It's good for you to know that the Grand Justice Belinus is a famous nobleman in Rome. He has marriages with many wealthy families. This time he is visiting the Campanian Admiral Levi. If Levi knows, he will definitely send troops to wipe you out. The soldier threatened. Levi, are you talking about the Levi who defeated the Samnites and Lucanians and captured Domitius and Diabas alive? At this time a pirate came out and said, Chapter 178 Baptism. This pirate was obviously different from the other pirates. His clothes were very clean, his hair was very neatly combed, his eyes were light gray, his manners were noble, and his tone was full of Roman accent. The soldier looked at the pirate in confusion. This man looked like a Roman, and he looked like a knight or nobleman in Rome. Who are you? The soldier asked. He is a poor Roman whose property was taken away by others. The black pirate said, and then he winked at the pirate with extraordinary appearance. Yes, it's him. You'd better let us go, otherwise he will mobilize the army to encircle you. The Roman soldier said proudly. Idiot, this is the sea, how can he encircle us? The pirate with extraordinary appearance said, okay, don't say anything. Dear Roman, you see we have prepared your clothes, just put them on, and you can leave here. At this time, the black pirate said. The soldier snorted coldly, ignored the strange pirate, and put on his clothes. You are so boring, always playing such ridiculous games. The pirate walked to Lysax and said, his name was Pyrrhus, and he was once a civilian nobleman in Rome. There were two types of Roman nobles. One was the nobility that had existed since the monarchy era. The Latin meaning of senator was clan leader, and the Latin meaning of noble was the son of the clan leader. Therefore, the nobility in Rome was hereditary, and this kind of nobility was called a noble family or clan nobles. There was another kind of nobility called civilian nobles. As long as they had served as consuls, they could call themselves civilian nobles. Civilian nobles were also hereditary, and their descendants could also call themselves nobles. For example, Caesar was a clan noble, and Crassus was a civilian noble. Because Pyrrhus's father stood on the opposite side of Sulla, his family was listed as a public enemy of the state, and his property was seized. It was said that the land was allocated to Livy by Sulla. You don't understand this. What else can you do on the sea besides playing these? Lysax said with a smile. Pyrrhus looked at Lysax deeply. Even if he tried his best to disguise himself, Pyrrhus could smell the same breath from Lysax as other pirates. That was the aura of nobility, but judging from his appearance, he should not be a Roman, but a foreigner. Moreover, Lysax possessed amazing military talent. It was he who led his pirates to defeat the army of the governor of Sicily. It was at these times that Pyrrhus joined the pirates and tried to recruit them for their use. At this time, the soldier had already put on his clothes. Several pirates took out the gangplank with a sly smile, and then said to the soldier, Great Roman, you can leave now. What do you mean? Seeing the pirates extend the gangplank out of the ship, the soldier suddenly had a bad premonition. You are free now, you can leave our ship. The black pirate saluted respectfully, pointing to the gangplank, but his eyes were full of gloating smiles. But how can we leave now? There is the sea outside. The soldier said with a trembling voice. What's wrong with the sea? Can't you just jump down? You can swim back to Rome directly, a pirate said in a strange voice. The other pirates all laughed. Jump down quickly, Great Roman. You are free, but you must leave the ship. If you don't leave this ship, we will kill you. At this time, some pirates had already taken out their weapons and kept threatening him. The soldier was desperate. How could it be like this? Please, for the sake of being a Roman, save me. The soldier said to Pyrrhus, if you were not going to visit Livius, I might be able to save you. Pyrrhus said in a cold tone. We are not going to visit Livius. What I said just now was a lie. We were just passing through Campania. The soldier said in panic. "Those who deceived us must die," the black pirate said, and then grabbed him and threw him directly into the sea. The soldier shouted for help in the sea, but because he was wearing armor, he soon sank to the bottom of the sea. "How boring. I knew I wouldn't put armor on him, so I could have more fun." The pirates said one after another. "How do you plan to deal with Chief Justice Boldness?" Lysax asked. "Although I don't like him, if he is willing to join us, I can forgive his sins." Pyrrhus said coldly. "I hope you don't forget your promise." "Of course, after the matter is accomplished, I promise that you will become a noble and high official in Cilicia. But now I hope you can rob Levi's transport ship. I want to make him miserable and regret everything he has done." Pyrrhus' eyes were like a ball of fire, filled with endless resentment. "As long as your intelligence is accurate, they will never escape from our grasp. Don't worry about the intelligence problem. Our intelligence is absolutely accurate. Remember, I want half of the spoils." "No problem, Dad. Let me wash your feet today." Little Memmius carried a wooden basin and walked to Memmius in a baby voice and said. Memmius looked at little Memmius with a shocked face. He suddenly felt touched in his heart. He didn't expect that little Memmius was so sensible at such a young age. "Who told you to do this?" Memmius asked. "Because the true God said that we should be filial to our parents, so I want to wash your feet." Little Memmius said. "This God is pretty good," Memmius thought. But he didn't notice that Fabia secretly winked at little Memmius. All this was arranged by Fabia, and Fabia would give little Memmius a sweet rock candy afterwards. "Okay then," Memmius said. So little Memmius washed his father's feet, and the whole family was in a happy mood. "Memmius, do you want to convert to the Holy Church?" Fabia said at this time. "I'm not interested. I only believe in the great god of war Mars." Memmius shook his head and said. A trace of disappointment appeared on Fabia's face. It was very common for Rome to believe in several gods at the same time. For example, believing in Jupiter did not affect their belief in Venus and the Queen of Heaven Juno. Memmius was obviously an outlier among them, but the master of the family believes in the true God. "He is the only prophet of the Holy Church," Fabia said. Memmius fell silent. The experience in Dragon City was the pain of his life. Finally, he shook his head. "No, I only believe in the great god of war Mars," Memmius said. Chapter 179. Castus still can't let go of the resentment in his heart. Fabia sighed. Perhaps it was for this reason that he refused to convert to the Holy Church. "Yesterday the priest asked us whether we would convert to the Holy Church. I think we have received so many benefits from the priest. If we don't agree to this request, it would be too unfair to the priest. Moreover, he is the principal of the school. As long as we convert to the Holy Church, we can reduce half of the tuition." Fabia said. "So I want to convert to the Holy Church with little Memmius and 2 slaves." "It's up to you," Memmius said. "Isn't it just believing in one more God? What's the big deal?" He suffered in this life because he was not loyal enough. Little Memmius's conversion to the Holy Church may help his future. "That's great," Fabia said. The next day, in the small church in the village. "Fabia, little Memmius, are you willing to convert to the true God, acknowledge that the true God is the only God in the world, and promise to abide by all the precepts of the Holy Church?" Lungus said to Fabia and the others with a kind face. The chairs in the back were filled with villagers. I do. They said one after another. "Now I declare that you are believers of the true God. From now on, you are all brothers and sisters in the Church. We should help each other and love each other and abide by the precepts of the Church." Lungus said. "Fabia, come forward." Fabia walked forward, and Lungus took a little water from a basin of warm water and gently touched her forehead 3 times. "I baptize you in the name of the true God." This is commonly known as baptism. Catholic baptism has 2 types of baptism by immersion and baptism by sprinkling. For example, Jesus was originally baptized by John the Baptist in the Jordan River, and later it developed into baptism by sprinkling 3 times on the forehead of the convert. Levi thought that the immersion method was too troublesome, so he said baptism as sprinkling. Baptism is a promise between us and the true God. "In the beginning, the world was in chaos, with no up, down, left, right, east, west, or north. The true God woke up from the chaos and decided to open the earth to avoid the earth. He picked up the artifact, the acts of creation, and split the world. The pure air rose, and the sky was formed. The turbid air fell, and the earth was formed. All the demons wanted to interfere with his opening of the sky and attack the true God, but they were killed by the true God. So the true God became the only God in the world. But because the demons fell in this world, all life in this world was contaminated with demonic energy. People have 7 deadly sins: pride, jealousy, anger, laziness, greed, lust, and gluttony. If you want to be saved by the true God, you have to be baptized, so that you can wash away the demonic energy on your body. This is the promise between us and the true God. Do you understand? I understand, Fabia said hurriedly. Little Memmius, come forward. The arena of Kephia was full of people and noisy sounds everywhere. Kill him. Castus. You are the best. Castus. I love you. The audience was hysterical and shouted crazily at the 2 gladiators fighting in the arena. One of the gladiators was shirtless, with long red hair, a charming smile on his face, and 2 short swords in his hands. The other gladiator was fully armed and holding a heavy shield. The gladiator holding 2 swords was relaxed and obviously had the upper hand, but he didn't seem to want to finish off his opponent immediately, but was teasing his opponent. Every time he teased, the audience screamed, and some even threw copper coins into the arena. Castus is really great, Quintus Paciatus said excitedly. Yes, he is the most powerful gladiator in our family, Lydia said with a smile. Is Levi not here yet? Quintus asked. This time he wanted to ask Levi for help. After learning that Levi was going to watch the gladiator competition, he wanted his top general to perform well in front of Levi. It should be soon, Lydia said. Castus, slow down. Don't kill the enemy so quickly. Levi will be here soon, she shouted desperately to Castus, but his voice was drowned out by the cheers of the crowd. Castus seemed tired of this weak opponent and quickly killed his opponent, then raised his swords and a bright smile appeared on his face. Damn it, Quintus couldn't help but curse. At this time, Levi brought Amelia to the VIP stand. Tullius and others saw Levi coming and hurriedly got up to greet him. Although Levi's guards were scattered in other cities, he is now the admiral of Campania, the triumphant general, and the general under Sulla. No matter which of these identities is taken out, they are enough to make them all. I seem to have missed a wonderful game. Who is that person? Levi said. He pointed at the red-haired gladiator who looked unruly. Castus, a slave gladiator from the Basiatus family, Tullius said. Cassius, one of Spartacus's important helpers. Livius thought. His face fell quickly because he remembered some very bad memories. Should he kill these gladiators? But he soon rejected this idea, because they are very important. It is related to whether he can become a Roman consul in advance. According to Roman law, the minimum age to serve as a consul is 40, but Sulla postponed this age to 42. Can I bear to serve as a consul at the age of 42? Of course it is impossible. How can I serve as a consul at the age of 42 when I am talented? Pompey couldn't stand this either, so after returning from the expedition to Sertorius in Spain, he refused to disband the army and forced the Senate to agree to let him compete for the consulship. As a result, he joined hands with Crassus, who had just suppressed the Spartacus uprising, to become a consul. This is his only chance to become consul in advance, so he must not let it go. Levi's eyes flashed with a light that others could not understand, and then he sat down. He whispered to Amelia, if it were not for an important festival in Rome today, he would not come here to watch the gladiator competition. After 3 years of training, Amelia has become more and more beautiful. She looks like a fresh and delicious cabbage, which makes people want to take a bite. This makes Levi very itchy. When will he pick this cabbage? Look, what's going on over there? Amelia pointed to a place not far away. Levi looked in the direction and found that Quintus was trying to come over here, but was stopped by some soldiers. I didn't expect it to be him. I haven't seen him for a long time. Levi's eyes were a little complicated. He still remembered Titus's rejection at the time, and the intelligence team reported a message to him that they seemed to have said something very bad when they attacked Capua. Chapter 180 Welcoming. Let him come over, Levi said. After receiving Levi's order, the soldiers let Quintus come over. Quintus, long time no see, Levi said with a smile, and then hugged him gently. Quintus was touched. He didn't expect that Levi, who had become a big shot, would still think so highly of him. Recently, you don't come out much. You stay in Dragon City all day. I can't see you even if I want to, Quintus said nervously. Are you familiar with him? Tullius asked curiously. We used to be friends and often played together. What's the matter with you? Levi said. Tullius' eyes flashed with a strange light. He didn't expect Quintus and Levi to have such a good relationship. It seems that the plan to suppress him should be stopped. There is indeed a small matter that I want to ask you for help. For some reasons, the arena doesn't want me to participate in this year's competition. So, Quintus said, is that true? Tullius, Levi asked. Tullius is the administrator this year, and he has the right to intervene in these matters. I'm not sure about this. I'll ask later. It shouldn't be a big problem, Tullius said with a light cough. Now you see the problem is solved, Levi said with a smile. Thank you so much. Recently, our family is planning to hold a banquet. I wonder if you are interested in coming, Quintus said with gratitude. Some things they can't do even if they run their legs off, but it's just a matter of a few people's words. Hearing this, Levi looked hesitant. It can be said that Quintus's home is a den of dragons and tigers. The three giants under Spartacus have all gathered. Only Spartacus is missing to raise the banner of rebellion and raise the banner to resist Rome. If you are busy, forget it. Quintus saw his reluctance. I'm a little busy recently, and there are a lot of things to do, Levi said apologetically. How is Uncle Titus recently? He has been dead for a long time, Quintus said. When did it happen? Levi asked with a shocked face. A year ago, when you went to Pompeii. I didn't inform you, Quintus said. What a pity. Levi sighed. He didn't expect Titus to die. At this moment, Lysis came over anxiously and whispered something. What did you say? Our ship to Egypt was robbed by pirates, Levi said in shock. Which bastard dared to rob his own transport ship? Yes, we just got the news. Several rowers jumped into the sea to escape, and were later rescued by another ship. And then the news came over, Lysis said. How much is the loss? About 300,000 dinars. Levi's heart was bleeding. 300,000 dinars. Although it's not too much, it's also his hard-earned money. Tullius was shocked. 300,000 dinars, half of his wealth. As for Quintus, let alone, his total wealth is less than 100,000 dinars. Investigate. You must find those damn pirates for me. I want to nail them all to the cross, Levi said angrily. At this time, he had no mood to watch any arena games. He hurriedly said goodbye to Quintus and others, and then wrote several letters to Rome, hoping that Rome would allow him to send troops to fight pirates. But these letters were like a drop in the ocean, and there was no response. Just when Levi thought it had no effect, Sulla and the current consul Catullus wrote a letter to him respectively. Catullus asked him to go to Rome to be questioned about the detention of the Chief Justice. Sulla's letter told him that there was good news and invited him to Rome. Levi immediately ordered people to pack up their luggage, and then opened the Dragon City with some soldiers. At the gate of Rome, more than a dozen chief justices, treasurers, name-protecting officers and some senators of the Roman Senate were waiting for people here, and these were Serbia, Liberius, Billus and others. Although Levi's guards were dispersed by Sulla, this caused a great loss of his strength. However, Livy seized unimaginable wealth in the Civil War, and made a lot of money in the African War. Livy invested all the money in buying land, and Livy invested 5 million dinars every year to buy land. The number of Roman citizens in Livy's hands was increasing every year. According to Livy's estimate, he had at least 50,000 Roman citizens. It was with these Roman citizens that Livy pushed his men into the Roman political arena. Every year, there was a magistrate, 2-3 treasurers, and at least one civilian tribune, forming the Livy system in Rome. In addition to these people, Marcian was also sent here by him, as a capable person in the intelligence group. In addition to developing some intelligence organizations in Rome, he was also responsible for lending to the elders of the Senate. Crassus in his previous life gave him great inspiration, and he decided to learn from Crassus and lend money to those elders without interest to gain their support. In fact, this effect is very good. Some elders want to go further, which requires a lot of expenses. At least 100 senators owed Levi a debt, which gave Levi a huge influence in the Senate. Sarabio and others were talking in a low voice, and laughed from time to time. At this time, someone shouted, "Look, the head of the family is here." The five-clawed golden dragon flag appeared in their sight from afar, and a large team was getting closer and closer to them. Now the whole of Rome is not safe, and Levi has to travel with a large number of guards. Haha. Sarabio, long time no see, why have you gained weight recently? Levi hugged Sarabio tightly, and then asked in confusion, This. Sarabio was embarrassed and speechless. He got divorced. Chief Justice Liberius said, "So that's the case, congratulations, Sarabio, you don't have to suffer at night anymore," Levi said mysteriously, and everyone else laughed. "What do you mean, head of the family? It was obviously because Sempronia cheated on me that I divorced her," Sarabio said dissatisfiedly. Understand, Levi said with a smile, and the others laughed even louder. Sarabio was so angry that veins on his forehead were throbbing. If it wasn't Levi who said this, he would have rushed up and punched him. After some people greeted each other, everyone walked towards the city gate. The Senate has already known the news that Chief Justice Bullius was captured by pirates, Sarabio said. After he stepped down as the governor of Africa, he automatically became a senator of the Roman Senate. Has the Senate made any decision? Levi asked. Now the Senate is in a panic because of Lepidus's opposition to Sulla, and has no energy to deal with this matter, Liberius said. Chapter 181 Lepidar. Livius has always been paying attention to these things. At first, Lepidus relied on his closeness to Sulla to win a lot of property from the enemies of the country during the civil strife. But 2 years ago, Sulla resigned from the position of lifelong dictator as history had shown, and at this time Lepidus revealed his true colors against Sulla. He made speeches against Sulla on various occasions more than once, and not only won the support of those exiled nobles, but also Pompey supported him. It was because of their support that Lepidus became the consul for that year. Because of this, Sulla, Lepidus and Pompey were almost like fire and water. Is there really no way out? Livius asked. It's difficult. The situation in Rome is very tense now. The civilians and the aristocrats are like fire and water, Sarabio said meaningfully. Livius only thought about it for a while and understood the reason. Their worries were completely normal. This was another conflict between the civilians and the aristocrats, and it eventually developed into a war. After Lepidus resigned as consul, he went to recruit 2 legions of his own, but he rebelled directly and wanted to become a lifelong dictator like Sulla. It just didn't work. Otherwise Rome might have another brutal massacre. This made Levi very unhappy. Could it be that the 300,000 dinars were just for nothing? At this time, they came to the People's Square. A large crowd gathered in a corner of the square, and a very loud voice was echoing in the square. It's Lepidus, Sarabio said. Let's go and take a look. Levi thought for a while and said. Everyone followed Levi and walked over there, and soon they found a handsome young man outside the crowd. Pompey, I didn't expect you to be here too. Levi walked over and said, it was indeed the cuckolded handsome boy Pompey. Pompey's face changed slightly, and then he squeezed out a smile. Levi, it's been a long time since we last met. The two sons hugged each other gently, but Sarabio and others looked at Pompey with a cold face. They knew what Pompey had done during this period. What is he talking about? Levi asked. Nothing, you will understand if you listen, Pompey said a little embarrassedly. Levi nodded and listened carefully to Lepidus's speech. Dear respected Roman citizens, the massacre a few years ago was a naked tragedy. Countless nobles and knights with noble character and unparalleled loyalty to Rome were brutally killed, and their property was shamelessly deprived. What did they do wrong to end up like this? Which law listed them as public enemies of Rome? No law allows them to do this. It was a cruel massacre, it was an organized robbery, and the property of those massacred public enemies of Rome should be returned. Hearing this, some people shouted excitedly, some people shouted directly, return the property, exonerate their charges, return the property, exonerate the charges. Hearing this, Levi's face changed. Is this the person you support? Levi said with a playful look on his face. He didn't believe that Pompey didn't know that he had made a lot of benefits in the civil war. That was tens of millions of dinars of assets. If it was returned, Levi swore that he would kill people. Pompey was even more embarrassed, but soon calmed down. "I didn't know he was like this at the time," Levi sneered, and the matter was over with a word of not knowing. "It's okay if you oppose Sulla, but don't involve me." "Then can you stop supporting him?" Levi asked. "Well, he and I are friends," Pompey said with an apologetic look. Levi stared at him intently. The moment he met Pompey, he knew that their friendship would not last long, because Pompey was a man who was crazy about honor. For honor, he could be an enemy of anyone. Levi's limelight had already overshadowed Pompey. How could Pompey like him? "Really? I want to see how he makes me spit out those properties," Levi said with a sneer. After that, he took Cerebio and others and left here directly. "This Pompey, I think he is not a good guy at all. Knowing that this will harm the interests of the family owner, he still does this. It's simply shameless." Cerebio spat fiercely and said, "That's right, many of Sulla's men have broken with him, and the two sides are like fire and water." Lammaris said, "Levi has always heard that Sulla's faction and Pompey have a bad relationship, but he didn't expect it to develop to this extent." However, Livius knew the reason why Pompey hated Sulla, who forced Pompey to divorce his wife and marry your ex-wife's daughter. "But you can't implicate me." Livius felt that he was wronged, even more wronged than D. Soon after returning to his villa on Mount Cabeto, Sulla's invitation arrived, inviting him to visit the gladiator competition held the next day. The Colosseum is located in the Mursa Valley between the Palatine Hill and the Aventine Hill. It is 2,180 Roman feet long and 998 Roman feet wide. 1 Roman foot is 0.29 meters. Enough to accommodate more than 100,000 spectators. This is a semicircular arena. The western half is divided by a straight line. There are 13 arches. The middle arch is the main entrance, and the main entrance to the arena. The other arches are connected to the secluded room, where the gladiators and the beasts are imprisoned. Opposite the main gate is the Arc de Triomphe, where the victorious gladiators pass through. Connecting the arch and the Arc de Triomphe is a low wall of about 500 Roman feet. In the middle of the low wall stood the obelisk of the sun, with columns, altars and statues on both sides. When Levi, Cerebio and others arrived, the place was already crowded with people. The stands that could accommodate 100,000 people were already filled with people of all kinds, and some civilians were still eating food brought from home. Seeing so many senators and chief justices wearing purple-edged togas and red-edged togas surrounding a young man, someone shouted, "Lucius Levi, long live Levi, long live Levi." Suddenly, a shout rang out in the arena. Levi suddenly felt flattered. He didn't expect that after not being in Rome for such a long time, so many people still remembered him. He waved to the crowd, and then came to a stand just above the Arc de Triomphe under the gaze of more than 100,000 people. This stand was specially prepared for senior officials and senators, and a large number of senators and senior officials had already landed here. Levi didn't know many of these people, but they were all very enthusiastic. They knew that Livius sent several high-ranking officials to Rome every year. In the long run, Livius would become a very powerful force in Rome. Even the consul Catullus took the initiative to stand up and said, "Levi, sit here." Livius would intervene in the consul election every year, and Catullus was the person Livius supported last year, so he was very enthusiastic about Livius. Chapter 182 Lucullus. "Then I won't be polite." Livius smiled and sat down. As for Lepidus on the other side, he ignored him. As the saying goes, cutting off someone's financial resources is like killing their parents. Lepidus wanted to return the property of the exiled nobles, which was simply to cut off his life. Moreover, he was a general under the Cinna faction. How could he have a good relationship with him? He didn't want to pay attention to Lepidus, but Lepidus took the initiative to come up to him. "Levi, I heard that the Grand Justice Belinus was captured by pirates in your territory." Lepidus said, "Yes, it is true. I hope the Senate can authorize me to recruit troops and suppress pirates." Livius said, "The commander of an army must be at least a Grand Justice. How can you do it at your age?" Lepidus said with a smile, but his words were merciless. "That's right, we have to follow the rules. If there are no rules, Rome will be in chaos." An official next to Lepidus said. Hearing this, Livius felt a prick in his heart. Is it wrong for him to be young and capable? So many people used his age to target him. But he said disdainfully, as far as I know, during the Second Punic War, Scipio Africanus led his troops to fight in Spain at the age of 25, and defeated Hannibal in the Battle of Zama at the age of 34. If he could do it, why can't I? Hearing this, the field fell silent for a while. The reason why Scipio was able to lead the troops to fight was, on the one hand, because his father died in Spain, and on the other hand, because Hannibal defeated the Romans and made them lose all confidence. No one was willing to go to Spain, so Scipio, who took the initiative, got the position. As for Scipio's defeat of Hannibal in the Battle of Zama, that was something no one expected. Can you compare with Scipio Africanus? A senator couldn't help but say, that was Scipio who defeated Hannibal, the African conqueror, the Roman god of war, and the idol of countless people. They grew up listening to the story of Scipio Africanus. Why not? When he was my age, did he achieve as much as I did? Levi rolled his eyes. Everyone was speechless. It was true. Levi was a monster. At the age of 18, he defeated more than 25 legions of enemies. If he was older, it would be terrible. Some people have already started to think that Levi must be suppressed, otherwise, there will be another Marius or Sulla in the future. If there are a few more Roman massacres, how many people can bear it? Don't think that foreigners are all White Lotus. After Pompey returned from the expedition to the east, he was suppressed by the Senate very tacitly. It may be difficult to let you lead the army to encircle and suppress pirates. After all, there are so many consuls and magistrates, Catullus said. At this time, Lepidus' heart moved and said, in fact, it is not impossible to encircle and suppress pirates. Just leave it to me. Levi looked at him speechlessly. If he really handed the army to you, I am afraid that Rome would suffer first. At this time, a noise came from the distance. Levi and the others looked over to the distance and found that Sulla was leading a group of people towards them. Sulla was wearing a toga and walked in front with a dragon-like gait. He didn't look sick at all. Catullus and the others stood up quickly. Even if Sulla was not a lifelong dictator, they didn't dare to underestimate him. Haha, Levi, you are finally here. Seeing Levi, Sulla was very happy and took the initiative to hug him, just like a gangster meeting. It's great to see you, Levi said. He looked at Sulla. After not seeing him for a while, Sulla was obviously much older. He was sprinkled with thick perfume. Some parts of his body had become ulcerated and a faint odor could be smelled. Levi, long time no see. Crassus hugged him hard. Levi rolled his eyes strangely. You, a smiling tiger, are pretending to be enthusiastic here. I heard that you have made a lot of money recently. Let's communicate when we are free, Levi said with a smile. Haha, I can't compare with you, Crassus said with a dry laugh. He is indeed rich, but it is really nothing compared to Levi. Livius made money much faster than him, and many industries were monopolized. Even though he had silver mines, he was still envious. Hello, my name is Licinius Lucullus. I have heard of you for a long time. At this time, a middle-aged man who was nearly 40 years old said. Livius' heart moved. It turned out that this was the famous general who defeated Pontus and Armenia. When Sulla went on an expedition to Greece, he was Sulla's treasurer. Later, Sulla sent him to the Allies to recruit navy. He single-handedly recruited a large number of navy for Sulla. When Sulla returned to Rome, he raised supplies for Sulla in Greece. He was Sulla's most trusted person. After Sulla died, he entrusted his children to him. For various reasons, Livius never knew him. It's really unexpected. I admire you very much, Livius said. Lucullus thought he was joking. Although he was still a little famous, he couldn't compare with Livius at all. Haha, you should communicate more in the future. Don't stand, sit here, Sulla said with a big laugh. He pulled Levi and Lucullus to sit on either side of him. In this way, Levi sat between the consuls Catullus and Sulla, which aroused the envy of everyone. At this time, Levi found that a young man next to Lucullus was glaring at him, and he couldn't help but be very curious. Who is he? He is my brother Marcus. I'm sorry, because of our uncle's matter, he has some misunderstandings about you. Lucullus said. Your uncle? Metellus is their uncle, Sulla said. Levi suddenly realized that this was the reason. However, The marriages of the nobles are really powerful. Any one of them may be related. He is still young and a little ignorant. I hope you can understand. I will not interfere in the feud between you and my uncle, Lucullus said with a smile. Marcus looked at him with resentment. Like an elder brother, I am much older than Levi. How can I be young? Livius almost laughed out loud, but he admired Lucullus's shrewdness. This man was gentle and elegant. Perhaps there was a chance for him and Lucullus to cooperate. It's just a little grudge. It's over in the past. Don't take it to heart, Sulla said. Metellus and Livius were both generals under him. He didn't want the two sides to get too stalemate. Livius smiled slightly. He couldn't make the decision on this matter. I remember he is fighting with Sertorius in Spain now. How is he doing? Livius asked. After hearing Livius' words, the conversation actually cooled down. That Sertorius is not an ordinary person. He is extremely cunning in using troops. My uncle is used to using an upright army, but he never caught him and suffered a lot, Lucullus said. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 183 Newspaper. And the last governor of Spain was defeated by Sertorius. I never thought he would be so powerful, someone said. I remember you gave Sertorius a sword and said he must be a famous general. We laughed at you before, but I didn't expect you to have a good eye, Sulla said. Levi smiled slightly. You still don't realize how powerful he is. Pompey and Metellus had been fighting for several years with the endless support of Rome, but they still couldn't take it down. This is just the beginning. Giving a sword, what's the matter? Someone asked. So someone told the story of that year. Hearing this, everyone was amazed and thought it was incredible. How did Levi know that Sertorius would be a famous general? At this time, Pompey came over from the side. Humphrey, what a thing! Someone snorted coldly. Traitor, Dot. Sulla's face immediately turned into ice, and he looked forward quietly, as if he didn't see Pompey. Pompey's face changed, but he finally walked in front of them. Levi hesitated for a moment, but didn't say hello in the end. Lepidus gave him a warm welcome, and Pompey sat down next to Lepidus. At this time, the main door opened. Several priests came in carrying the statues of the gods, and then placed the statues on the altars on both sides of the obelisk of the sun god. Can the competition begin? Catullus asked. Let's start, Sulla said. A military bugle sounded, and then Sulla gave a brief speech. Because this gladiator competition was held by Sulla to please the Roman people, such things often happened in Rome. Soon the competition officially began. This was an extremely grand gladiator competition. There were more than 200 gladiators alone, and in addition, there was a lion. The first game was a match between a lion and two gladiators. Seeing such an exciting game, the audience was so excited that they were going crazy. 100,000 people shouted together, and the sound almost broke Levi's eardrums. You know, this lion was brought back from Numidia by you. It is the last of those lions, Sulla said. Livius shook his head, not expecting his lion to be used here. At this time, he told his purpose, hoping that Sulla would support him and allow him to recruit troops to fight against pirates. Hearing this, Sulla looked embarrassed. You know, a country cannot be established without rules. If you want to lead troops to fight, you must at least become a chief justice. But how old are you? Livius said in his heart. MMP, you can even say this. If you want to say who is the most unruly in Rome, it must be you. Even Marius has to stand aside. Who was the first to lead troops into Rome? Wasn't it you, Sulla? Marius was driven away by you and returned while you were on an expedition to Greece. In addition, you have the nerve to say that you abide by Roman law for the massacre you committed in Rome. Sulla's face turned red when he was looked at by Livius, and he coughed lightly and changed the subject. Do you know why I invited you to Rome? Sulla asked. I don't know. I have made the microscope you mentioned. You have proved your theory. You will become the greatest philosopher in Rome. No, the world, Sulla said with a smile. Levi looked at him in shock. How could this be possible? How could a microscope be made so quickly? This is a high-tech thing. How much money did you spend on it? What did you say? A microscope has been made, Catullus said in surprise. That's right, we did find the microorganisms that Levi said. Sulla said, those Greeks created philosophy, but many of their philosophies cannot be proved. Only Levi proved his philosophy. Levi smiled slightly. This was not proved by himself. This was clearly something that high school students in later generations knew. This is simply too unbelievable, Lucullus said. What happened? Crassus asked at this time. Lucullus explained what he knew, and then more and more people knew about it. Hearing this, everyone was shocked. I have sent invitations to those academies in Greece, inviting them to witness this event together, Sulla said with a smile. Levi's mouth twitched. Sulla was really good at showing off. He was more anxious than him, but this feeling was still good. At this moment, Sulla looked back. Levi looked back and found a noble lady in her 30s holding an almost invisible silk thread and smiling at Sulla. I'm sorry, I just pulled out this silk thread to share your luck. After that, he blew a kiss to Sulla and left. Sulla was stunned for a long time, then asked, what's her name? Metella had been dead for a while, and he felt that he was about to fall in love again. Her name is Valeria, the daughter of Malla and the sister of Hortensius, also translated as Hortensius. She divorced her husband a few months ago, and it was said that she was infertile. Crassus said with a smile. Sulla nodded, and at the same time made up his mind to go back and ask if this beautiful lady was interested in marrying him. Levi shook his head. Sulla was probably 60 years old. Even with this appearance, there are still women who show their love, so many times. If you have power and money, don't be afraid that no women like you. In the gladiator arena yesterday, Sulla announced a big event, that is, Sulla invented the microscope, discovered the microorganisms mentioned by Livy, proved that Livy's theory was correct, and the philosophy of ancient Rome entered an unprecedented glorious era, and he has sent people to invite Greek philosophers to watch, and they will witness together that Roman philosophy has reached the pinnacle of the world. At that time, the Roman arena issued earth-shaking cheers, and the voices of "Long live Sulla" and "Long live Livy" were everywhere. Livy was extremely contemptuous of Sulla's shamelessness. It was obviously the microscope I designed. How could it be invented by you? But at this point, he didn't want to argue about anything. The next day, he called Sarabio to his villa. Sarabio, are you interested in being the editor-in-chief of a newspaper? Livy asked. What is a newspaper? What is an editor-in-chief? Sarabio asked curiously. So Livy told him what a newspaper and an editor-in-chief were. After 3 years of preparation, the manufacture of paper and movable type printing had entered a very mature state. Livius had always wanted to publish the newspaper, and he felt that this was a good opportunity to make a name for himself. The greatest philosopher in ancient Rome. This title was very impressive. But why use such precious paper to print some news instead of using it to print books? Sarabio said in shock. Nowadays, many books are made of parchment and papyrus. Livius actually used precious paper to print news, which was a waste of resources. Chapter 184 Gathering in Rome. It can't be said that it is to satisfy someone's small desire. Of course, as the fourth power outside the separation of powers, the importance of newspapers is mainly known to people in later generations. Books need to be printed, and newspapers need to be published. Tell me, do you want to do it or not? Levi said. Most of Levi's subordinates are people who wield swords and guns, and only Sarabio has the highest cultural level. Otherwise he would not have asked Sarabio, a second-rate lawyer, to be the editor-in-chief. Sarabio thought carefully. Out of a politician's intuition, he felt that newspapers should have a huge influence. If this influence is well exerted, they can even control the selection of consuls. I did it. When will it start to be published? Sarabio said. It will take some time. I have written a letter to Dragon City, and those craftsmen will come to Rome soon, Levi said. His ideal printing place is the Vatican. He will not only station troops there, but also serve as another villa for himself. Greece. Athens gradually recovered after being ravaged by Sulla. There is a very famous academy outside Athens called the Academy of Plato. It is the most famous academy in Greece and even the entire Mediterranean. I don't know how many nobles and celebrities have studied here. Inside the academy, After reading Sulla's letter, Philo was shocked. They actually did it. And it was Sulla who did it. This is simply incredible. Director, are you going? Someone asked worriedly. Philo is already very old and in poor health. He can't stand the long journey. Go. Of course I have to go. How can I not go to such a grand event? Philo said firmly. Maybe the secrets of the whole world will be revealed by the microscope. How can he not go? In Athens, Antiochus, the chief lecturer of the Epicurean school, said to Cicero, Cicero, are you Roman? Yes, teacher, Cicero said respectfully. After a very famous lawsuit in Rome, he had to go to Greece to study. The lawsuit involved a freed slave of Sulla, who had seized the property of a Roman knight at a very low price. Cicero helped the Roman knight win the lawsuit, but he also offended Sulla, so he had to go into exile in Greece and learn philosophy by the way. I heard that Sulla invented a microscope and proved the existence of microorganisms. He asked our Greek philosophers to send people to visit. Do you want to go back with me? Antiochus said. Is this true? Cicero couldn't believe his ears. He had heard of Livy's point of view before, but he didn't expect that they would actually come up with it. This is definitely a discovery that can subvert the entire world's philosophical view. Perhaps Roman philosophy can surpass Greek philosophy. Yes, Antiochus said. Cicero hesitated for a long time. Now that Sulla has abdicated, there should be no great danger. Well, then, I'll go back. In Rhodes, many famous philosophers also set off for Rome. In the Vatican, Livy was busy with newspaper matters. As the editor-in-chief, Sarabia also recruited several journalists, including his former friend Appius. Philosophers from Greece and other regions have arrived in Rome, and they have visited the Roman Academy to visit the microscope. The result surprised them because they really found some microorganisms on rotten meat, and the deputy director Dilius told them that with the powerful function of the microscope, cells and atoms will be discovered sooner or later. In the Levi Hotel, a top hotel in Rome, this is a 3-story hotel with extremely luxurious interior decoration. The most important thing is that there is not only an open-air swimming pool outside the hotel, but also large pieces of glass inlaid on the walls. Since the practical production of large pieces of glass, Levi has not sold this kind of glass in large quantities. It really supplies a small number of nobles and knights, and all other uses are for his own industry. This hotel is one of them. When the Greek philosophers saw these glass windows just now, they were stunned. The sunlight shines directly into the room through the glass, making the room extremely bright. Compared with those houses that have to rely on the patio for light, it is simply heaven. It is precisely because of this unique large piece of glass, coupled with some business philosophy of later generations, that the Levi hotel chain has become the most famous hotel in Rome. Although the price is extremely expensive, there are still a large number of customers coming every day to experience this unique sunny life. At this time, the Greek philosophers have no time to experience this wonderful life. They gathered together and anxiously discussed how to deal with this situation. What should we do? I heard that in 2 days, the Roman Senate will award Levi the medal of the great Roman philosopher. Who will take us seriously in this way? Said a philosopher. The Greeks are proud, even with a little racism. They believe that except for the Greeks, all other races are barbarians. Even Plato believed that the Greeks were different from other races. Although the Romans conquered Greece, Greek culture firmly ruled Rome. The Romans were proud to study in Greece. Even Scipio, who defeated Hannibal that year, was a Greek fan. The Greeks had always joked that Rome had no philosophers at all, but now the Romans had proved their philosophy, and this proof would threaten many schools of Greek philosophy, which made many Greek philosophers uneasy. That's right, his doctrine is too harmful to us, said a Milesian philosopher. The Milesian school was mainly divided into 3 factions. One of them believed that water was the beginning of all things, and the other believed that air was the beginning of all things. Air exists in the bodies of humans and animals and constitutes their souls. Of course, it seems that this is all nonsense now. I don't think we need to worry so much. He didn't fully expound his doctrine. I heard that he was a prophet of a sect, which shows that he recognized the existence of the soul. A Pythagorean philosopher said, Livy's doctrine may conflict with them, but the conflict is not that big. For example, The Pythagorean school believes that the soul is immortal. The soul exists not only in humans, but also in animals. Many Pythagorean philosophers forbade eating the meat of various animals to avoid eating the flesh of a similar soul. In fact, I think his theory makes sense and should be strongly supported. An atomist philosopher said. No doubt he was a follower of Democritus. Many philosophers glared at him. It can be said that the atomists benefited the most from this incident. Everyone knew that Levi was a supporter of the atomists, although his theory was somewhat different from that of the atomists. Chapter 185, Roman Academy. For a while, everyone was arguing. Some opposed Levi's theory, while others supported it. In the end, everyone could only look at Philo, the director of Plato Academy. Philo was the most respected person. The three greatest Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato and Aristotle, were more or less related to Plato Academy. Philo smiled and said, "We are philosophers who pursue the truth. Why should we care about these things?" The director is still generous. Some people praised, but others disagreed. Many philosophers make a living by their own theories. If their own theories are proven to be wrong, who can be their students? How can they become the guests of those nobles? I think we should understand Levi's complete theory. I think it will be a great help to the development of philosophy. Philo said. Yes, I will ask him what he thinks of our school in 2 days. Someone said. I want to ask him what he thinks of the gods, said a philosopher who looked a little cunning. Everyone looked at him sideways, and some even walked away from him with disgust. Even Philo was no exception. Socrates was executed for disrespecting the gods, and Aristotle also fled Greece because of his disrespect for the gods. Many philosophers here developed from their schools, and of course they hated it. The philosopher also realized that he had said the wrong thing, and regretted it in his heart, and immediately shut up. The weather was clear and the sun was shining. There were crowds of people in the Roman Academy. Not only many citizens, but also some senators and senior officials came. Hortensius, the director of the Roman Academy, watched all this happily, and went to greet some high-ranking officials or nobles from time to time. Originally, he did not want to take over the position of director. As an excellent orator, he was more interested in politics. But at that time, Sulla was notorious, and under pressure from Sulla, he had to accept this position. Unexpectedly, he has made a name for himself now. Now the Roman Academy is not only famous in the Mediterranean, but also will be remembered in history. As the first director of the Roman Academy, he also took the opportunity to accumulate a lot of connections, which would be of great help to his future political career. At this time, Levi and Sulla came over here together, followed by a large number of elders and senior officials, and even the consul Catullus was with them. Seeing this, Hortensius's expression became complicated, because Sulla and his sister were getting along very well recently, and they were already talking about marriage, which made him feel very sick. Sulla was about 60 years old, with ulcers all over his body and a bad reputation. His sister was only in her 30s, how could she like him? But he quickly suppressed these distracting thoughts and greeted her with a smile on his face. Ha ha ha, dear Levi, you are so great. You can achieve such great achievements at such a young age. Even Socrates, Plato and Aristotle are not as good as you at this age. The whole of Rome is proud of you. Hearing this, Levi was shocked. Compared with the three great gods, this is like roasting him on the fire. I just stand on the shoulders of giants, so I can see farther. Levi said very modestly, stand on the shoulders of giants. Everyone thought about this sentence and felt that it was full of infinite philosophy. They thought Levi was being modest. Many people understood Greek philosophy, but only Levi could prove his theory. I must write this sentence down. I feel that I will definitely use it in the future, Hortensius said with a big laugh, and then led them to the academy. Levi looked at him a little strangely. If he remembered correctly, it was this buddy who played the wife-swapping game with the moral gentleman Cato the Younger. It has to be said that the Romans know how to play. In addition to awarding you the medal of the great philosopher today, the Roman Academy also intends to award you the position of honorary director. What do you think? Sulla asked. I don't care, Levi said that these were just empty titles for him. The reason why he has always refused the position of director of the Roman Academy is because he feels that one day in the future he will confront the students here. Rather than stabbing each other with his students in a sentimental way in the future, it is better to keep a distance from the beginning. Hortensius took them to a hall. Since the ceremony had not started yet, many Roman celebrities and Greek philosophers were communicating with each other here. Seeing Levi coming, many Greek philosophers immediately came forward, but they had dark faces towards Sulla. When Sulla went on an expedition to Greece, he offended these philosophers badly. Although he didn't dare to scold Sulla, he still had the courage to show his face. Sulla looked indifferent. He was a lifelong dictator and would be afraid of these philosophers. It was because he wanted to step on these philosophers hard that he invited them to Rome. Levi, what do you think of the soul? Do you really think the soul is immortal? What do you think of Plato's tripartite theory of the soul? Do you support Epicureanism or Stoicism? The questions from everyone annoyed Levi, and at the same time, he was sweating. These philosophers were really hard to deal with. Fortunately, he had prepared a trump card, otherwise he would have been defeated by them today. At this time, Hortensius came forward to help him stop them. Everyone, there will be a question and exchange session before the official award ceremony. You can ask Levi questions at that time, Hortensius said with a smile. Okay then. Those philosophers had no choice but to retreat, and only Philo stayed. Long time no see, Director Philo, Levi said with a smile. Yes, it's been almost 4 years. I regret leaving Rome a little, otherwise I might have witnessed all this happen with my own eyes, Philo said with emotion. Cicero looked at Levi with envy. It was really terrible that a person could achieve such great achievements at such a young age. If his age had not restricted him, he might have become a consul. The hall was noisy. After a while, the time for the award ceremony finally came. Hortensius took them outside because the award ceremony was held on the school's training ground. Dear consuls, senators, nobles, knights and great Roman citizens, I feel extremely honored to be able to stand on the podium today. Then Hortensius, the director of the Roman Academy, began a passionate speech. Being able to become the lifelong rival of Cicero, the founder of lawyers, his oratory level was very high, and the emotions of all the audience were mobilized by him. He first praised Levi fiercely, and then fully explained the great significance of this award ceremony. After that, except for some Greek philosophers, basically everyone applauded desperately. Chapter 186. Debate with Scholars. Next, please invite our greatest philosopher Lucius Pausius Livius to speak, Hortensius said loudly. Then there was another round of extremely warm applause, no matter those who liked Livius or those who hated him. At this moment Livius represented the honor of the whole of Rome. Livius walked to the stage, bowed slightly, and then began his speech. Of course, he had memorized the speech long ago. It was written by Cerebio and then revised by himself. After all, as a writer, he still had some skills. After the speech, there was another round of warm applause, even mixed with many screams, and then it was time for the much-anticipated question-and-answer session. Everyone knew that the Greek philosophers would definitely come to mess up the scene. They would definitely try their best to embarrass Livius. Only in this way could they prove that Greek philosophy was the greatest philosophy in the world. Appius watched all this excitedly. He held a pen in his hand and kept writing and drawing on a book bound with true God paper. As the chief reporter of the Roman Daily, he felt sincerely honored to be able to record all this. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the questioning session. Greek philosophers can ask Levi any questions they have. Remember, each person is limited to 3 questions, Hortensius said as he stepped onto the stage again. A philosopher quickly stepped onto the stage and said, "Hello, respected Levi, I admit that you are a great philosopher, but I still have some questions for you. What do you think a human being is?" If this question was asked by an ordinary person, it might attract a lot of ridicule, but if it was a philosopher, then he had to answer it carefully. A human being is made up of a body and a soul. The body is made up of a bunch of cells and molecules, and cells and molecules are made up of atoms. As a prophet, Levi must vigorously promote the immortality of the soul. As for how to answer their questions, Levi has also thought about it. that is, to adhere to the materialistic worldview. Do you think the soul is immortal? Yes. Do animals have souls? Yes. What is your human soul made of? I don't understand this question, but I know that this is a forbidden area for the true God, a field that humans cannot reach for the time being. Levi drew a cross and said in a very mysterious way, "Okay, your question has exceeded the limit. Who else wants to come up?" Hortensius quickly stopped the philosopher from asking questions and drove him off the stage. The philosopher looked unsatisfied and asked another question, but Levi didn't answer it in the end. Hortensius quickly selected another philosopher. "Levi, what do you think this world is made of?" A philosopher asked. "This world was created by the true God, who made the rules. Then there are endless atoms. In fact, I think atoms can also be subdivided." Levi said with a smile, "What do you think atoms are like?" The philosopher asked, "Is it a triangle, a rhombus, or a polygon?" "It's like the Earth and the Moon, a group of moons revolving around the Earth." Levi didn't want to say it in detail, but just said it vaguely. "May I ask how you know?" "Guess, but I think with the advent of more powerful microscopes, my statement will be proven," Levi said with a smile. Next, Hortensius hurriedly drove him down. "Philo, please come up." Hortensius didn't expect that the next person he chose would be Philo. Philo walked up to the podium with a smile, and then said, "Livius, I would like to ask you what you think of Plato's metaphysics. I'm afraid that many people in later generations have only heard of metaphysics, such as insisting on opposing metaphysicalism, but they don't know much about what metaphysics is. Plato's metaphysics is different from this. Metaphysics is taken from the phrase the metaphysical is called Tao, and the physical is called Chi in the Book of Changes. It emphasizes the pursuit of the truth of things, not just the surface phenomenon. It advocates that people should not only know what it is, but also why it is. For example, a ship will float on the water, but why the ship floats on the water, I'm afraid many people at that time didn't know. Metaphysics encourages people to pursue the truth behind things. I agree with it very much." Livius said with a smile, "What do you think of Plato's tripartite theory of the soul?" "That is the realm of the true God, and I know nothing about it." "May I ask what do you think of the ideal country? Can it be realized?" "It is impossible to realize. There will never be one in the world within 2,000 years. Also, Plato believes that the ideal country is ruled by philosophers. I think it may not be possible for philosophers to rule the country, but it is definitely possible for the disciples of philosophers to rule the country." Levi said, "May I ask how it can be realized?" Philo asked hurriedly. Levi hesitated for a moment. This seemed to be his fourth question, but he finally answered it. "Of course, it was realized in China. Confucianism is a kind of philosophy. Whether Confucian disciples are philosophers is controversial, but the disciples of philosophers are definitely considered philosophers. Only in a monarchy, when the monarch worships a certain doctrine and regards it as a concept of governance, can the rule of philosophers be realized. I think it is only in the East that the rule of philosophers can be realized." At this time, Philo continued to ask questions regardless of whether it was in accordance with the rules. "Why not the West?" "The West will be ruled by God, and the East will be ruled by man," Levi said meaningfully. Philo wanted to ask more questions, but Hortensius had already come on stage. Philo had already asked 5 questions, which seriously exceeded the requirements. Philo had no choice but to leave the stage, but he had decided that he must have a candlelight conversation with Levi today and get all the information out of him. Soon another philosopher came on stage. "Do you think human perception is correct?" "Not necessarily correct." "Why?" One philosopher after another came on stage, and those questions were tricky and all-encompassing. Fortunately, Levi was not a pushover, and he finally defeated them all. Levi knew that he couldn't go on like this, and it was time to throw out his trump card. At this time, Cicero's teacher Antiochus came on stage. Cicero watched all this excitedly. He was extremely proud of Levi. He was able to debate with so many philosophers without losing the upper hand. It really boosted the Romans' morale. Sulla also nodded repeatedly. "Let's see if those Greeks dare to look down on us Romans in the future." "Excuse me, do you think human nature is good or evil?" Antiochus said, "Human nature has both good and evil. People are the product of their environment. Whether people are good or evil depends on the environment they live in, said Levi. Chapter 187 Methodology. Antiochus thought about it and felt that it made sense. So what is time? Antiochus continued to ask. Livius pondered for a while and finally decided to throw out his trump card. I can't describe time accurately, Livius said. Many people couldn't help but exclaimed. So many questions could not stump Livius, but he was stumped by a small time. Sulla cursed inwardly. Even if you don't know, you can just say a few words casually, wouldn't that put you at a disadvantage? Some Greek philosophers smiled happily. They finally asked Livius. Antiochus frowned. He felt that Livius would not give up so easily, and sure enough, Livius' next words confirmed his guess. In fact, I am a very ignorant person, Livius said. There was an uproar below. Although Livius was very young, his erudition still won the recognition of many people. This world is full of deception. Our perception is inaccurate. Just like we think that sunlight is colorless, but in fact it is composed of 7 colors of light. So is this 7-color light composed of more colors of light? Livius said. Hearing this, everyone fell into deep thought. I can only be sure of 2 things at present, that is, the existence of the true God and my thinking. Only these 2 things are certain to me and will never be wrong. Everyone was in an uproar. How could the true God exist? How could this be certain? Some people wanted to ask questions, but Levi ignored them. I think there is a problem with the previous philosophical research methods, because there are too many philosophies that cannot be proven. There are all kinds of mud and sand among them, and many of them are even shoddy. Therefore, I think we should establish a new era of philosophical research methods. Everyone was shocked, even Sulla was no exception. They did not expect that Levi, at such a young age, would have such ambition to establish a philosophical research method. Arrogant, a Greek philosopher couldn't help but say. Levi glanced at him lightly and continued, we can only base ourselves on those truths that are absolutely correct and without error, and then use these truths to prove more truths. Hearing this, everyone fell into deep thought. There are too many schools of Greek philosophy now, and most of them cannot prove their correctness. If we follow Livy's statement, then philosophy is likely to face a major reshuffle, or even enter a new realm. What Livy said is actually the philosophical view of Descartes in later generations. It is precisely based on this view that Descartes is considered the founder of modern philosophy. Mathematics, especially the arguments in geometry, are almost all based on this foundation. For this reason, I have specially written a book called Methodology. I hope you can correct me. Livy winked at Sarabio, and several elders including Sarabio immediately came over with nearly 100 books. Give me one, Antiochus said. Sarabio immediately gave him a copy. Except for him, those philosophers basically all had a copy. Even Sulla and others got one. For a while, everyone started to read Methodology. Of course, Livy's methodology is not exactly the same as Descartes, but roughly the same. Even so, those people were still extremely shocked. This was written by a young man in his 20s? This is totally impossible. But everything in front of them told them that this was really written by Livy. Genius, and a peerless genius. You are so great. I am not as good as you, Philo said with admiration. You are worthy of being the greatest philosopher in Rome. Once this book comes out, I am afraid that the whole philosophy will change. Antiochus sighed and said, although Cicero was almost 30 years old, he still looked at Livy with stars in his eyes. He overwhelmed Greek philosophers with his own strength. A real man should be like this. Sulla couldn't help laughing. Although he didn't understand what was good about this book, he knew that this book was an extremely remarkable book after seeing the performance of those philosophers. Appius excitedly recorded all this, and then interviewed several Greek philosophers. Those philosophers were confused by the newspapers and reporters, and they didn't understand what this was, but this did not affect their praise for Livy at all. Today is destined to be a great moment, and he will be recorded forever in the history of the Mediterranean. Then we will have a formal award ceremony. The chief senator Valerius will present Livius with the Great Philosopher Medal, congratulating him for becoming the greatest philosopher in Rome. Boom! Thunderous applause immediately broke out from below. Selling newspapers, Selling newspapers. The Roman daily is published for the first time. The Roman Senate presents the great philosopher medal to the triumphant general and admiral of Campania Livius. Livius published the book Methodology. A Greek philosopher said that the philosophical world will usher in a great change. Livius may become the founder of the philosophy of the new era. The war in Spain is still going on. Sertorius has repeatedly teased Metellus. Metellus has an absolute advantage in military strength. Why can't he defeat Sertorius? Please listen to this newspaper's detailed explanation. Unveiling the secrets of Lepidus, the consul during the Civil War. How did Lepidus buy up a large number of properties of the fleeing nobles at a low price after Sulla conquered Rome? The next day, as soon as the weather brightened, the cries of newspaper boys rang out in Rome. Many Roman citizens were curious. They stopped those newspaper boys and asked what newspapers were. What a waste! Such good paper is actually used to print some news, a Roman knight said angrily after reading the newspaper. The newsboy couldn't help curling his lips. Do you want to buy it or not? Do you know where to sell these papers? How much are these newspapers? Those people asked one after another. The newspaper is 2 sesterces, 1 dinar equals 4 sesterces, per copy. If you want to buy it, you can only go to Levi's sugar shop, a newsboy said. Many people took a breath of cold air. This thin newspaper costs 2 sesterces per copy, which is really too expensive. But the news in the newspaper is really attractive, and there are many rich people in Rome who don't care about this little expense. Give me a copy. I want one too. Not long after, the newspaper in the newsboy's hand was snatched away. The newsboy happily took the money back to the newspaper office. A knight bought a newspaper from the newspaperman and found that the newspaper was divided into 4 pages. In addition to the news that the Senate awarded Livius the Great Philosophy Medal, the newspaper had more than 20 news items. Not only political news, but also some gossips about the elders, which made the knight very addicted. After reading the news about the consul Lepidus, he was contemptuous. He didn't expect Lepidus to keep saying that he wanted to return the property of those nobles, but he also bought so much property at a low price. What a mean person. Chapter 188 Wedding. At this time, he found the advertisements of Levi's Sugar Hotel and Weapon Shop in the gap of the newspaper. The weapons of Levi's Weapon Shop are the best in the world. You deserve them. Former lifelong dictators Sulla, Sertorius, and Pompey are all owners of Levi's Weapon Shop's famous swords worth millions of dinars. White sugar, the most wonderful food, brings you a paradise-like enjoyment. Seeing this, his heart moved. Those who can afford newspapers are undoubtedly rich people, and those with the strongest consumption power. Among them are many elders, nobles, and even some foreign princes. It would be great if their own industries could be published on it. Soon he found a line of small words below Levi's Weapon Shop, sincerely seeking advertisements, price negotiable. Location is the Rome Daily newspaper west of Civic Square. This made him overjoyed, and now he could promote his own industry. The original suburban Vatican has now been built into a huge castle. Some fully armed guards are patrolling around, and there is an inner castle inside the castle. That is where the printers work. In a garden full of flowers and vines, Sarabio was talking to Levi. How are our newspapers selling? Levi asked. It's selling very well. We have sold more than 2,000 copies. Many people are very interested in our newspapers. Some want to advertise, and some ask if they can publish their own articles. Sarabio said, of course, as long as those publishers are influential, we can publish their articles. We can even invite them to do some exclusive interviews. Levi said, what is an exclusive interview? Sarabio asked. It's just to find someone to do a report, Levi said. But Sarabio still didn't understand, so Levi could only explain it to him. For example, if you come to interview me, you can ask me some questions about the expedition to Africa, and I will answer these questions one by one. At this point, Levi's heart moved. Should I also do an exclusive interview with myself, just in time to publicize my achievements in the past, which would also be a great benefit to my reputation? So that's how it is, Sarabio said thoughtfully. Ahem. Livius coughed lightly. To demonstrate this to you, I will write an interview in your name. The title is The New Conqueror of Africa and Numidia. Livius. Cerebio's face almost turned red from coughing. Damn, how shameless. Even boasting should have a limit. Aren't you afraid that the Scipio family will come and settle accounts with you? But he soon realized that Livius was really not afraid. The modern Scipio family was in decline, so how could they dare to cause trouble for Livius? If you want to do it, do it. Livius immediately picked up a pen and wrote an interview. As a writer, he still has this basic skill. Not long after, an interview with great fanfare was written. Come and see how it goes, Livius said. Cerebio read it carefully. There was inevitably some self-boasting in it, but it didn't seem to be too much. He found a few typos for Livius, and then his eyes rolled around. Can you see if you can include me? You know that I had a very hard time when I was the governor of Africa, Cerebio said with a bitter face. Your sister worked hard, probably on Sempronia's belly. Levi looked at him with disdain, but finally remembered that he had made some contributions, so he agreed. No problem, you can also do an interview for yourself, Levi said. Interview is good, interview is good, Cerebio said with a smile. As the editor-in-chief of the Roma Daily, of course he must have an interview of his own. At least he must write about his glorious struggle. In this way, he can attract those noble ladies more. I have to say that Miss Fabia's work a few days ago was still very good. Thinking of this, Cerebio's eyes showed a lustful light. Since divorcing Sempronia, he has completely let himself go. He has become a socialite in the upper class of Rome, and from time to time he has some romantic affairs with some noble ladies or noble ladies. Just when Cerebio was a loud laugh came from outside the door. Ha ha ha. Levi, I heard that this newspaper is run by you? Before seeing the person, Sulla's voice came in. Soon, Sulla and Dolabella appeared in front of him, ignoring the guards' obstruction. The guards looked helpless. Levi waved his hand to let the guards go, cursing that they were really old rascals who didn't follow any rules. That's right, Levi said. This newspaper is so beautiful, especially the one about Lepidus. I have long disliked that despicable man, Sulla said with a smile. Since he let those nobles come back and return their land, he is my enemy, Levi said. You are right, that despicable man bought so many properties at a low price, but now he comes out to be a good man. It's so shameless. But we can't be careless. I heard that he has decided to officially convene a citizens' assembly to discuss this matter, Dolabella said. What did you say? He actually plans to convene a citizens' assembly to discuss this matter? Levi said with a look of shock. Yes, he has my people around him. He plans to officially announce this matter in a few days. He has been giving speeches for this matter all the time, Sulla said. Levi's face immediately turned cold. He didn't expect this guy to be serious. We must do our best to stop him, Levi said. Yes, I have contacted many people, including Archon Catullus. I hope you can also help. Don't you have a lot of guards and tenants? Sulla said. Levi couldn't help rolling his eyes. Didn't you dismiss all the guards? Where did the guards come from? When I disbanded my guards, you were more active than anyone else. Now you think of my guards. Ha ha ha. We are all grown men. Why do you hold grudges? Sulla patted his shoulder hard, using a lot of force. Damn, this guy actually did something dirty. Levi couldn't help but grin. By the way, I have good news for you. I'm getting married in a month, Sulla said. Who is the marriage partner? Levi said, although he had already guessed it in his heart. Valeria. It was indeed her. Old cow eats young grass. Levi looked at him with contempt. Old cow eats young grass? Sir didn't understand what it meant at first, but he soon came to his senses. Ha ha ha. That's right, I, Sura, have been invincible in my life. Even when I'm old, there are still people who like me. Sura laughed. He was getting more and more shameless, and Levi despised him even more. By the way, you are not young this year. Why don't you get married? Sura asked. Chapter 189, Tribunes of the People. He was mainly worried that Amelia was too young. If she got pregnant, it would be too dangerous to give birth, and to be honest, he was somewhat resistant to marriage. Don't be so nagging. Get married on the same day as me, Sura said. Okay. Levi thought about it and said, maybe he really should get married. Amelia has been looking forward to this day for a long time. Hey, what is this? Dolabella said, picking up a piece of paper. "This is an interview with our newspaper. It will be published in the newspaper tomorrow," Sarabia said. "This is very good. But are you so good? Are you bragging?" Dolabella said after taking a look. Levi couldn't help rolling his eyes. "Even if it was bragging, so what? Is bragging against the law?" Sura grabbed the paper and read it. After reading it, his face was full of admiration. "This is a good idea. Is this called an interview?" "Yes," Sarabia said. "Make one for me later. I want to be in the newspaper, too. I've already written part of my memoirs. I just need to make some changes. I want to let the Roman people know how I defeated the Germans and how I conquered Greece." Sulla said. "And me." "And me," Dolabella said. "One is better than the other, but it's better this way. The more people want to be in the newspaper, the more people will beg him." "No problem," Levi said. "Asshole, what is the Roman daily? How dare they write about me? Don't they want to live?" Consul Lepidus was furious when he saw the newspaper. "It's not clear," his butler said. "Check it for me quickly. If you find out, ban him," Lepidus said. "Yes, master," the butler said hurriedly. The next morning, the sun had just come out, and a small building on the west side of the civic square was already busy. Some newsboys came here, took bundles of newspapers and left, and then sold them everywhere. "What's in the newspaper today?" A newsboy was stopped by a wealthy businessman before he left. "An interview with Livius, the new conqueror of Africa and Numidia. Livius and Sulla and Livius will get married on the same day. Do you want it?" The newsboy glanced at the newspaper and said, "What did you say?" "There is such important news. Give me a copy quickly," the businessman said. A slave came forward to pay, and the businessman took the newspaper and read it directly. Livius's African War Chronicle looked very exciting, but the businessman looked at the news of Sulla and Livius' marriage. Former lifelong dictator Sulla and the most dazzling general Livius are getting married on the same day. "It's really a grand event in Rome," the businessman said, not knowing whether he could get an invitation. If he could, he would probably brag about it for a long time. After taking a few glances at the newspaper, he came to the newspaper office because he was here to advertise today. "What do you want?" As soon as he arrived near the newspaper office, he was stopped by the guard at the door. "I want to place some advertisements and hope to contact your boss," the rich businessman said. "Please follow me if you want to place advertisements." The guard was about to leave, but his face suddenly changed drastically, because he found 12 followers holding guns walking towards this side, and Lepidus followed closely behind them. Seeing this, everyone hurriedly made way. Even the rich businessman was no exception. "Is this the newspaper office of the Roman daily?" Lepidus said with a gloomy face. "Yes, what do you want?" The guard's legs trembled a little. The person in front of him was the Roman consul, and he looked like he was coming with bad intentions. At this time, someone had already seen the situation and went in to call for help. Seeing that the crowd around was getting bigger and bigger, Lepidus suppressed his anger, took out a newspaper, pointed to an article and said, "Did you write this article?" "Yes. Right." The guard's teeth began to tremble. "Numa actually came to settle accounts." "Why are you insulting me, the honor of a great Roman consul?" Lepidus roared angrily. This. The defender was speechless. "Because this is the truth. Livius said that he was the one who ran the newspaper. If you have any questions, you can go to him." At this time, Appius came out and said he thought it was a good job, but he didn't expect to offend the consul so quickly. He was a little doubtful whether he should continue to do it. "Livius, it's him." Lepidus gritted his teeth and said, as soon as he saw those advertisements, he had this doubt, and some of the true God paper had leaked out. "Your newspaper must be closed," Lepidus said firmly. "I can't make the decision on this." "You can go to Livius," Liberius said helplessly. "Don't always make things difficult for us little people." "I don't care. Close this newspaper for me," Lepidus said. The entourage following him was about to rush into the newspaper office, but those guards had fought their way out of the mountains of corpses and seas of blood. How could they succeed so easily? "What are you doing? Get out of my way. This is our master's territory, who allowed you to come in. Get out of my way." His followers and the guards pushed and shoved, and someone pushed a guard to the ground. The consul hit someone. Someone shouted loudly, and the crowd watching outside immediately became agitated. Although they didn't know what happened inside, it didn't affect his imagination at all. "Asshole, who said I hit someone?" Lepidus said angrily. At this time, a voice came from outside. "What happened here?" Everyone looked over and found a middle-aged man in a red cloak appeared here. "It's the Tribune," someone said in surprise. It was a civilian tribune that Levi had pushed up, because he was worried that someone would cause trouble for the newspaper. Levi had kept him near the newspaper these days. Unexpectedly, he was right. "Dear Tribune, someone wants to close down our newspaper. You have to help us." Appius was overjoyed. He knew this tribune and knew that he was Livy's man. "Consul Lepidus, is what he said true?" The tribune looked at Lepidus and said, "Yes, they slandered my reputation. Of course I have to close them down." Seeing him coming, Lepidus knew that he had no chance, but he still said it firmly. "Who gave you the power to close this place? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you are a consul," the tribune said disdainfully. Lepidus was furious, but he admitted that he was right. In addition to legislating in the citizens' assembly, the greatest power of the plebeian tribune is the veto power. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 190 Prosecution. Any tribune of the people can veto any resolution of the consul and the Senate indefinitely, except during war, regardless of whether the order is reasonable. In addition, the tribune of the people is sacred. Anyone who harms the tribune of the people for any reason will be sentenced to death. There is no exile at this time. The tribune of the people often uses the sanctity to do some jaw-dropping things, such as blocking the voting channel and not letting people vote, or blocking your door and imprisoning you in disguise. If Levi had a tribune of the people under him, he would not be so passive at all. Whether it was the Senate or the consul, a veto would be enough. "Just wait. I promise you will regret it." Lepidus said a harsh word and left here in disgrace. Appius let out a long breath. He knew that this matter was serious and he must report to Levi immediately, so he said goodbye to the tribune of the people and came to Levi's villa. Appius looked at the villa with envy. When will he have a villa on this mountain? This is the dream of every Roman. After the report, someone soon took him to a hall. Sarabeo was lying on a couch without image and eating fruit. A young man stood in front of Levi respectfully and reported something. Appius listened carefully. "Wasn't this what happened in the newspaper just now? Who is he? Why would he report this to Levi?" "Come, sit down. Don't be too restrained here." Sarabeo patted the couch next to him and said. Appius smiled bitterly. "You can only say this. How dare I sit casually in front of the big boss?" "No need," Appius said hurriedly. "I know. You go down first, pay close attention to this matter, and report immediately if there is any new situation," Levi said. "I know, master of the family," the young man said, and then left here. Appius carefully looked at the young man. "Isn't this the famous moneylender Marcian in Rome? It is said that many senators have a close relationship with him and are good friends of him." "I already know what you want to say." "Sit down first and let's talk about this matter," Livius said. Appius immediately sat down as he said. Sarabeo couldn't help rolling his eyes. "You didn't sit down when I asked you to, but you sat down immediately when Levi asked you to sit down. How do you think Lepidus will deal with us?" Livius asked. "I feel that there are two most likely methods. One is to sue us, and the other is to convene a citizens' assembly," Appius said. He was born in an aristocratic family and he was very familiar with the operating mechanism of Rome. "He is right. It is useless to submit this matter to the Senate. We have the tribunes of the people, who can veto the Senate's bill at any time, so he can only sue first. If the prosecution fails, he may appeal to the citizens' assembly and ask for the newspaper to be closed down." Sarabeo said. "The most important function of the consul is to lead troops to fight. In addition, he also presided over various conferences, divination, etc. Disputes between Roman citizens were decided by the Grand Magistrate. The number of Grand Magistrates in Rome kept increasing. There were only 6 Grand Magistrates before. After Sulla conquered Rome, He increased the number of grand magistrates to 8. One of them was specifically responsible for handling disputes between Roman citizens. Another grand magistrate ruled on disputes between Roman citizens and foreigners, and the others mainly ruled on disputes between provincial people. To put it bluntly, the Senate was just an advisory body. It had no law enforcement capabilities. Only when it was combined with the sacredness of the tribunes of the people would the Senate have great power. Livy had a tribune of the people in his hands. He could veto the resolution of the Senate. This was an extremely terrifying power. When Caesar was in the Gallic War, the Roman Senate once made a resolution to remove Caesar's military power, but it was directly vetoed by the tribune of the people. The helpless Roman Senate could only wait until the tribune of the people expired before disbanding Caesar's military power. The consequence was that Caesar crossed the Rubicon River and marched into Rome, setting off the Roman Civil War. Do you think he can succeed? Livius asked. It's hard to say. After all, there was no such thing as newspapers before. But as long as we can get the jury, we will be invincible, Cerebio said. Livius nodded. Since Sulla became the lifelong dictator, he reformed the jury system. Only the elders of the Roman Senate could be members of the jury. In order to balance the power of the nobles and knights, he stuffed a large number of knights into the Roman Senate, so that only nobles and knights could be members of the jury. It seems that I have to ask Sulla for help. You should also make some efforts in the Senate to help me convince those elders who may become the jury. Livius said. I think Sulla is very willing to help. The one who hates Lepidus the most is definitely not him, but Sulla. No problem. As expected by Livius, Lepidus immediately filed a lawsuit in court after returning. Out of the intuition of a politician, Lepidus keenly felt that the newspaper would cause great harm to him, so he had to sue Levi as soon as possible. Seeing the subpoena personally delivered by Lepidus, Levi couldn't help but touch his nose. He didn't expect it to be so fast. Although Lepidus was also a chief justice, he was in charge of disputes between Roman citizens and foreigners, not the presiding judge. The chief justice of this trial is Cassius Longinus, who is Sulla's man, so we don't need to worry. The main thing is the jury. The jury has the final say on this matter, Lepidus said. This requires Cerebio and you to work hard. In addition, Sulla also said that he would help. Levi said. No problem, just leave it to us, Cerebio said with a big laugh. In addition, we can't just stand there and watch. We need to take action, Levi said with a playful look on his face. Amir Lepidus dared to fight him. He really didn't know how to live or die. Now his power is deep-rooted and he is no longer comparable to the little knight of Capua. In Pompey's villa, Demetrius walked in with a newspaper. This is today's newspaper. Pompey nodded and sat down. Recently, newspapers are the hottest thing in Rome. After Pompey knew that it was published by Livy, he bought some to learn more about it. He found that the first edition was Jugurtha's War and Livy, the new conqueror of Africa and Numidia. After seeing this, Pompey was shocked, because these two articles are about the war records of Sulla and Livy, recording their days of fighting in Africa. Pompey read them with relish. As a general, he was very interested in these. Chapter 191 Discussion. Unfortunately, due to limited space, the remaining second day will continue to be serialized. At this time, Pompey suddenly found a line of bold characters. This newspaper will serialize various war records in the next period of time. If you want to publish in the newspaper, please contact this newspaper. Seeing this, Pompey couldn't help but feel moved. It would be great if his war record could be on it. Thinking of this, he couldn't sit still anymore. Should he discuss this matter with Levi? At this time, he found another piece of news. What is this? Roman consul Lepidus formally sued Campania Admiral Levi, demanding that Levi publicly apologize to him and stop publishing the Roman daily. Levi strongly condemned this, claiming that the newspaper did not violate any Roman law and that the reports of the Roman daily were true. Levi will present evidence in court. If everything is true, Levi hopes that the consul can be humble to him. I didn't expect their relationship to be so bad that they even went to court. Is my choice right? There are too many people who oppose me recently, and Levi is a pretty good helper. At this time, a slave came in. Master, this is the wedding invitation sent by Levi. Invitation? Pompey took it and read it carefully. Maybe it was time to repair his relationship with Levi. Levi and Lepidus were both working hard to increase their chances of winning. Although the consul sounds very impressive, it depends on who they are facing. After Pompey returned from the expedition to the east and completed 3 triumphal ceremonies, he sent someone to directly injure a consul, which left a psychological shadow on the consul. As a result, he stayed at home for several months, but Pompey was fine. Levi was very confident that he would win the case. He himself had great power in the Roman Senate. At least hundreds of senators owed him money, and Sulla's generals in the Senate were born opponents of Lepidus, so he would never lose. Since Lepidus said that it would take time to collect evidence, the court would be held in 3 months. During this time, Levi would focus on preparing for the wedding. He sent someone to pick up Aemilia from Capua, and at the same time sent someone to inform his father-in-law Camillus. After hearing the news, the excited father-in-law left Africa by boat the next day and came to Rome as quickly as possible. But when he learned that the consul was suing Levi, he was almost scared. He was just a down-and-out nobleman in Africa, and the governor of a province could almost decide his life and death, not to mention the consul. In Levi's villa, Aemilia was helping Levi to organize the toga, because Levi was going out to meet Sulla today to discuss marriage. "My dear son-in-law, do you think we should apologize to the consul? It's really not good for you to say that. As long as you admit your mistake, this matter will be over," Camillus said cautiously. "Admit your fault?" Levi looked at his father-in-law in surprise. "Do you know that he wants to return the property of those exiled nobles and knights? And he also wants all those exiled nobles and knights to return. If what he said is really successful, then I will lose nearly 50 million dinars of property." 5,000 dinars? The father-in-law's eyes bulged out. He was so rich. 50 million dinars. How much money is that? The tax revenue of a province in Africa is not that much. When Sulla invited me to join them, I made a condition and asked him to give me 20 million dinars. Sulla agreed. Half of the 20 million was paid with the land of those exiles. Later, I invested the remaining 10 million in buying land. At that time, land was worthless and very cheap. In addition, I also bought a large amount of real estate in Rome. The appreciation of these real estates is definitely more than 50 million now," Levi said. The father-in-law was stunned with shock. He didn't expect his son-in-law to be so rich, let alone 50 million. He doesn't even have 1 million dinars now. Soon Camillus's face became ferocious. He clenched his fists and said loudly, "My dear son-in-law, you did the right thing. For such a person, we must beat him to death." "Damn." The father-in-law changed his face quickly. Aemilia covered her face with shame. It was too embarrassing. "I don't know if this father can quit. By the way, what kind of marriage method will be used for this wedding?" The father-in-law asked the question he was most concerned about. "There are 3 ways of marriage in Rome. One is the oldest wheat cake marriage, which is the way of marriage between nobles. The ancient Romans regarded cracked wheat as the most precious and ancient sacrifice, and they would dedicate it to the gods. According to this law, the wife lives only to please her husband, and the husband has complete marital power over his wife, and the wife is officially owned by the man. The wife has no independent property rights, and all his property belongs to the husband. The second is a marriage of sale, where the husband buys his wife with a small amount of money. This is mainly used for marriages between commoners. In ancient times, commoners were prohibited from using the method of selling cakes to marry. In a marriage of sale, the husband also has complete marital authority. The third is a customary marriage, which is a marriage between a man and a woman who live together for a year without interruption. However, as long as the wife does not live with her husband for 3 nights a year, it means that the wife has broken away from the marital authority and is not controlled by the husband. This kind of marriage later became more and more popular among Roman women, who used it to get rid of their status of being subservient to their husbands. "How about a wheat cake marriage?" Livius asked. He remembered that Camillus and his family seemed to be impoverished nobles. In the end, he was still lucky. In fact, he did not want to hold a Roman wedding, but wanted to hold a religious wedding. But he gave up in the end. The current religious church is still very weak and not easy to be too high profile. "No problem," Camillus said excitedly. "Then what about the wedding venue?" "The temple of Jupiter." "Who will be the master of ceremonies?" "What do you think of Aurelia?" Livius asked. "Who is she?" "She was born in the famous Roman Cato family. She was the wife of Gaius Julius Caesar, the chief magistrate, and the sister-in-law of Lucius Julius Caesar, the consul," Livius said. In fact, the Romans were very bad at naming their sons. They often gave their eldest sons the same name as their fathers. For example, the father of Caesar the Great was also called Gaius Julius Caesar. The father and son had the same name, since the officiant needed to be a woman who had given birth. Livius thought about it and felt that Aurelia was a good choice. She had good character. He hoped that Aemilia would learn from her and not learn from those Roman noble ladies, especially the Perker family and the Cato family, whose whole family was full of sluts. Chapter 192 Wedding. "No problem," Camillus said excitedly. "This is a well-known family. There is no problem at all. By the way, I'm going to Sura's house. Do you want to go with me?" At this time, Aemilia had helped Levi to prepare the toga, and then stood aside with a red face like a little wife. "I won't go," Aemilia said. "Are there many nobles there?" Camillus said with shining eyes. "There should be a lot." Levi suddenly had a bad feeling. "I will go." "Of course I will go," Camillus said. "Then let's go." In fact, Levi really regretted it soon. Sura was lying on a couch, drinking the wine poured by Valeria with a radiant face. The expressions between the two looked extremely intimate, and it was obvious that they had already done something unspeakable. Levi drank the wine in silence, and not far away, Camillus was smiling and getting to know the guests. Looking at these wealthy nobles who had only heard of, Camillus was simply overjoyed. He didn't expect that one day he would be able to meet so many nobles. "Hey, is that your father-in-law?" Sulla touched his shoulder and said, that I guess so," Levi said speechlessly. "It looks very interesting." Sulla laughed. Ha. Levi laughed dryly twice. Time flies, and a month has passed in a blink of an eye. It is June again. The season for the rotation of consuls is about to come. Levi's threshold is almost trampled by the nobles. Levi has the ability to push his people to the positions of chief justice, quaestor, tribune of the people, etc., but he cannot push them up, and he has no ability to push them up to consul. Those nobles all hope to get Levi's support. Facts have proved that those who Levi supports basically become consuls like Catullus. The two people who satisfied Levi the most were Gaius Cotta of the Cato family, Aurelia's mother's family, and Gnaeus Octavius of the Octavian family, who should be Augustus' elder. Both of them came to ask for help. Livius thought about it and finally chose Gaius Cotta first. He decided to pull the Cato family into his chariot. Recently, there have been banquets on the streets of Rome, and all Romans can go there to enjoy various delicacies. This situation has lasted for 3 days. Because tomorrow is the wedding day of Livius and Sulla, Sulla announced that everyone can enjoy free food. The food is so rich that a lot of uneaten food was poured into the Tiber River. Livius admired Sulla's generosity very much, but he did not intend to learn this practice. He announced that he would establish a public library. He will strive to build this library into a library with rich collections like the Library of Alexandria in Egypt, and this library will be open to all Romans. Roman nobles like to build various public buildings. For example, the synagogue where the Roman tribunes work now was built by Cato the Elder, and the most famous Appia Avenue was built by the Claudius clan. After Caesar became a construction officer in later generations, he also borrowed a lot of money to hold competitions and gladiator competitions to please the Romans. He was truly generous despite being poor. In a villa on the Palatine Hill, which was lent to Camillus by Livius, a woman used a hooked iron spear to braid Aemilia's hair. According to Roman custom, women could not meet men the day before their wedding, and they had to use a hooked iron spear to braid their hair into a special hairstyle. Before long, Aemilia's hair became 6 braids, and the woman respectfully left after a few instructions. "The master has finally done it. You look so beautiful," Little Pepper said excitedly, and at the same time flattered the master a little. This year, Aemilia is 19 years old, in the prime of her youth, and her whole body is full of youthful breath. Aemilia touched the 6 braids. Her face flushed. "Really? Of course it's true. How could I lie to you?" Little Pepper said. "Is it done? Hurry up and change into your wedding clothes. Those clothes have to be sacrificed to the gods." At this time, Camillus walked in and urged. "I know. Are you going out first?" Little Amelia said. "Hurry up. You are usually so slow to change clothes." "Father," Amelia screamed. "Okay, I got it. I'll leave now." Camillus begged for mercy and left. "Miss, change your clothes quickly," Pepper said. "Do all those clothes have to be sacrificed to the gods?" "I'm a little reluctant. Some of them were made by my mother," Amelia said with a bitter face. "But this is the rule." Pepper was also helpless. "Okay then." After thinking for a long time, Amelia reluctantly agreed. With the help of Pepper, she took off her clothes and changed into a short coat and a woolen girdle. "I'm going to wear these today," Pepper said, and then put her clothes into a box. There were already several boxes next to this box. These boxes not only contained Amelia's previous clothes, but also her toys, but all of them had to be sacrificed to the gods. "Okay." Camillus' voice came from outside the door. "Okay," Pepper said. Soon Camillus came in with a few slaves, and when he came in, he found that Amelia had already put on a red veil. "Wear this veil tomorrow. Be careful not to get it dirty," Camillus said while instructing the slaves to carry the boxes away from here. "I know," Amelia said, and for some reason, she found herself very nervous. Fortunately, Pepper was with her, and she waited until the next day. In front of the Temple of Jupiter, there was a surging crowd, and a large number of guests arrived in advance. There were more than 300 members of the Senate alone, which was almost equivalent to a formal meeting of the Senate. In addition, there were various nobles, knights, etc., all of whom wore togas and wreaths on their heads. Among them, there were people Levi knew and people he didn't know. They came to greet him, and Levi's face was stiff with laughter. Cerebio was Levi's best man today. This guy talked and laughed with those people, and it seemed that he was doing very well in the Senate. Amelia was wearing a red corset and a veil on her head, with a wreath faintly visible under the veil. Camillus was nervous and complicated. He had raised his daughter for almost 20 years and was about to be taken away by someone else. It would be strange if he felt comfortable. After offering the cracked wheat to the gods, the high priest came out and looked at the cloudless sky, with a few birds flying by occasionally. "It's a good day today, you can get married," the high priest said loudly, and then walked into the temple. Levi's mouth twitched. The Romans really had to consult divination for everything. Chapter 193 Wedding, Part 2. The crowd cheered and walked into the temple. "Let's go in." Sulla smiled at Levi. Levi nodded and walked in with Amelia. The Roman temple of Jupiter is dedicated to 3 gods, Jupiter, Juno and Minerva. Each of the 3 gods has a separate inner temple. Juno is on the left, Minerva is on the right, and Jupiter is in the middle. The temple is decorated with many terracotta sculptures, the most famous of which is Jupiter driving a 4-horse chariot, placed on the top of the pediment. The inner temple is decorated with extraordinary splendor, and many places are inlaid with gold. The wedding of Sulla and Valeria was held first. Under the witness of the officiant, they made a solemn oath, offered sacrifices, and then shared wheat cakes. After Sulla finished, it was Levi and Amelia's turn. Levi walked forward with Amelia nervously. From the corner of his eye, he found that Amelia's hands were shaking constantly. Aurelia looked at them with a smile, and after they calmed down, she said, "Amelia, are you willing to marry Livius?" Amelia said to Livius, "Yes, you are the head of the family, and I am willing to bear children for you." The Romans were very realistic. In their view, marriage was to have children, and there was no other purpose. They even believed that marriage was contrary to the laws of nature and the flesh. In the past, brides were allowed to engage in prostitution for a month before marriage as compensation for their fidelity after marriage. Of course, now this custom has become the husband's friends throwing acorns or chestnuts into the bridal chamber. Aurelia asked again, "Lucius Bassius Livius, are you willing to marry Amelia?" "I am willing to protect him with my whole life," Livius said with a smile. "Congratulations, now I declare you a legal couple," Aurelia said with a smile, and then put their hands together, and Livius held Amelia's hands tightly. At this time, there was a round of applause from below. "Now I declare that the couple will offer sacrifices to the true god Jupiter." At this time, the chief priest said. Levi and Amelia took the wheat cakes that were brought up and walked forward and placed them on the altar. The chief priest recited the prayer and began to walk around the altar. Levi and Amelia also recited along, and the congratulations from the bottom were endless. After a long time of tossing and turning, the wedding was finally completed. Don't worry, you will have experience after a few more times. Seeing Levi's sweaty face, Sulla smiled and said. Levi secretly despised him. What an old rogue, but it's better not to have too much of this kind of experience. The temple part was completed, and then Sulla and Levi and his wife got on their own carriages and walked towards their respective homes. A cute little boy holding a torch walked in front, and behind him was a band, playing cheerful music and marching towards the Palatine Hill. In addition to some guests attending the wedding, people kept joining them along the way. They sang ancient folk songs, just like a parade. Levi, congratulations on your wedding. At some point, Pompey joined in with some people. Levi looked at Pompey with some surprise. He didn't expect Pompey to come at this time. Welcome, Levi said with a smile. Out of courtesy, he sent an invitation letter, but he didn't find him in the temple. Yes, I'm late for something, Pompey laughed. Of course, both of them knew the reason. Not long after, the team arrived at Levi's house. After getting off the car, Amelia smeared the door threshold with oil fingers, and then connected the doorposts on both sides with wool thread. Hold her, hold her, hold her, Dot. At this time, everyone laughed. Amelia blushed and almost buried her face in her chest. Levi laughed and gave Amelia a princess hug, holding her across the wool thread. Fortunately, the wool thread was not touched, otherwise it would be unlucky. After entering the house, Levi and Amelia lit the fire together, and then Levi sprinkled some water on Amelia to show that he accepted her as a member of the family. You guys eat outside first. I'll go into the bridal chamber with Amelia first, Levi said, and then he carried Amelia into the bridal chamber. After entering the bridal chamber, he was about to go out to deal with the guests, but Amelia held his hand. Drink less. Got it, Levi said with a smile, but after coming out, he found that those people had no intention of letting him go, and poured him one cup after another. Come on, drink this one. Sarabio didn't know if he was really drunk, and he started to act crazy, and then put a full glass of brandy in front of his table. Levi was also drunk and blurry. He couldn't remember how many glasses he had drunk, and why the things in front of him had double images. Okay, Levi said with a flushed face, and then drank the glass of brandy. After drinking this glass, he fell down completely, and then the whole room was full of evil laughter. In the early morning of the next day, Levi felt as if his brain had split, and it hurt like hell. Are you okay? A gentle voice came from the side. Levi looked to the side and found Amelia sitting on the bed, looking at him with a red face. You just sat there all night? Levi shook his head and said, it hurts. Yeah. Amelia's voice was as soft as a mosquito. Levi couldn't help laughing. What are you laughing at? Amelia couldn't help but said angrily. But she just finished speaking, she screamed, because Levi pulled her over, pressed her directly under him, and then undressed her. What are you doing? Amelia asked while struggling with a red face. Of course I'm doing that kind of thing between husband and wife, Levi said as a matter of course. Amelia was stunned. She didn't expect Levi to say such shameless words with confidence. At this time, Levi had already unbuttoned her shirt and did unspeakable things with his hands. Amelia blushed and covered her head, wondering whether she should show some reserve. Seeing that Levi's hands were about to fall, Amelia looked around and grabbed a blanket on the side as if it was a life-saving straw. It's so hot, why are you still covering yourself with a blanket? Levi said with a smirk, then grabbed the blanket and threw it directly to the ground regardless of Amelia's objection. Ah, you bad guy. Ah, Levi felt a pain in his shoulder, and then a row of fine teeth marks appeared on his shoulder. Seeing this, Amelia regretted it a little. Are you okay? It's okay. My heart is hurt. You bad guy. Levi smiled slyly and did unspeakable things with Amelia. You are so bad. When my dad came just now, I couldn't get out of bed. In a swimming pool, Amelia patted Levi's shoulder and said with a look of reproach. Chapter 194 Lawyer Selection. Didn't the father-in-law say anything? Levi said smugly, thinking of the strange expression of his father-in-law. Levi didn't know why he was even happier. Amelia looked at him hatefully. You're still laughing. By the way, I'm going out for a while. Do you want to go out with me? Levi asked. What's the matter? The time for my lawsuit with the consul is coming soon, and I want to find a lawyer for myself, Levi said. Who are you going to find as a lawyer? Amelia asked. Levi didn't answer immediately. In his mind, there were two ideal lawyers. One was Hortensius, who was the lifelong rival of Cicero, the founder of lawyers. He was Sulla's general and a member of Sulla's faction, and his sister married Sulla. If Levi asked him for help, he would most likely agree, but Levi wanted to take the opportunity to get to know another person, that is, Cicero, the founder of lawyers. Cicero can be praised as the founder of lawyers, and naturally he has his own extraordinary qualities. His origin was not noble, and he was a retainer of others like Cinna, but he relied on his own ability to become the Roman consul, and he was unmatched in lawyers. He was also proficient in literature and philosophy, and was the only philosopher in Rome, except for his poor vision, a bit soft bones, and a bit of flattery to the nobles. He basically had no major shortcomings. If he could pull him to his side, then he would definitely gain a powerful general. What do you think of Cicero? Levi said. You mean the one who sued Sulla's slaves? That's right. You decide. I'm a little inconvenient, so I won't go, Amelia said, and she still felt a little pain there. Okay then. So Levi left the swimming pool, changed into a dry short shirt, and left here. Not long after, Marcian had prepared a war horse for him, and a dozen guards were ready to go. Is he at home now? Levi asked as he rode on the war horse. Yes, his home is near Caesar's home, Marcian said. As the head of the intelligence agency's branch in Rome, Marcian knew even more than Levi. Really? Do they know each other? Levi asked in surprise. As far as I know, they have known each other for quite a long time and have a pretty good relationship, Machiavelli said. Levi nodded, and then everyone walked towards the civilian area. When they arrived at a market area, an old man who was selling vegetables nodded to Machiavelli. He was an outsider recruited by Machiavelli. Machiavelli returned a glance and walked directly to a house. Who are you? At this time, a woman in gorgeous clothes came out, but soon she opened her eyes wide and said in disbelief, Levi. Are you Levi? Yes, I came to see Cicero for something. I wonder who you are, Levi said with a smile. I am his wife Terentia. I am very happy to meet you. I wonder what you want to see him for, Terentia said excitedly. I have a lawsuit and may need his help, Levi said with a smile. The lawsuit with the consul? Yes. Terentia's face became hesitant. Although it was great to get to know Levi, was it worth offending the consul? Cicero had to go into exile in Greece because of offending Sulla. Are you Levi? At this moment, two men came out. They looked very similar and looked like brothers. One of them looked a little weak, and he said excitedly, Yes, you are Marcus Cicero. Levi asked. Yes, it's great to know you. You may not know that you are my idol, Cicero said excitedly. From Philo, the dean of Plato, to his teacher Antiochus, everyone admired Levi. He was the pride of Rome. It was natural for him to admire Levi as he loved philosophy very much. Really? That's great. Let's communicate more when we have time. I actually came here to ask you for help this time, Levi said with a smile. He felt that his chances of success were greater, so he told his purpose. I know you have some conflicts with one of Sulla's freedmen, but don't worry, I can help you settle these. After saying that, Levi looked at him quietly. Although Cicero liked his fellow countryman so very much and had conflicts with Sulla, but throughout Cicero's life, he has always been a staunch supporter of the aristocracy and always insisted on the leadership of the Senate, which is completely consistent with Sulla. He believes that Cicero is willing to agree to his request. Cicero hesitated for a moment. If Lepidus dares to retaliate against you because of this matter, you can come to me at any time, Levi promised. Brother, I think you should agree to it. It's your luck to be valued by General Levi. At this time, another young man said. Levi looked at the young man with admiration. The young man has a bright future. Are you Cicero's younger brother Quintus? Levi asked. Yes, I didn't expect you to know my name, Quintus Cicero said excitedly. To ask your brother for help. Of course I have to inquire about his information, Levi said with a big laugh. Let's go in and talk. It's really neglectful to keep you here, Terentia said at this time. Okay, so everyone went into the house together, and Terentia entertained them warmly, but Cicero was still a little hesitant and didn't agree, which made Levi a little dissatisfied. He rolled his eyes and soon came up with a plan. Quintus, what are you doing recently? Levi showed a warm smile on his face. I'm helping out in one of my sister-in-law's industries. Do you like that job? It's just so-so. Quintus Cicero showed a helpless smile on his face. The Capua garrison is short of a centurion. Do you want to give it a try? Hearing this, Quintus was overjoyed. Is this true? Of course I am willing. This is a centurion. Although their family is rich, it is still not easy to get a centurion position. After saying that, Quintus looked at Cicero eagerly. Of course he knew why Levi valued him. Seeing this, Cicero couldn't help but smile bitterly. Levi really understood his weakness. He loved his brother very much. Levi paid such a great price, so of course he would ask for a reward. If you promise to help me, I can guarantee you a position as a financial officer. Levi seemed to want to shock people and continued. Is this true? You are so generous, Terentia said with a shocked face, even a little incoherent. She has been encouraging Cicero to go into politics. She believes that only politics is what a man should do. Doing business to make money is simply low compared to politics. Chapter 195 Trial. Cicero was also excited. He had been determined to restore the glory of his family since he was a child, and of course he had to go into politics. Unexpectedly, Levi promised him the position of quaestor. Although Rome would give birth to 20 quaestors every year, this was the starting point for senior officials. After the term of office was over, they could become senators of the Roman Senate. Okay, I agree, Cicero said. Believe me, you will have an extremely bright future if you follow me, Levi said with a smile. Then I wish us a happy cooperation. Cicero raised his glass. The time for the court session finally arrived. The weather had become cold, but it still couldn't stop people's enthusiasm. The court was located near the civic square, and the trial was also open air. At this time, there were crowds of people nearby. People had already known the news that Lepidus sued Levi, and they came to watch the excitement. Chief Justice Cassius Longinus was wearing a toga with a border and was instructing the staff to decorate the venue. Some members of the jury had already arrived. They were in groups of 3 or 5, whispering about the trial. Although on the surface this was a fight between Livius and Lepidus, it was actually a major clash between Lepidus and Sulla's forces. However, almost no one was optimistic about Lepidus, because Sulla's power was too strong. After slaughtering a large number of senators, Sulla increased the number of senators from 300 to 600. Those surviving senators were either friendly to Sulla or were Sulla's men. Those who were stuffed into the Senate were almost all his men. Although Sulla had left office, he still had unparalleled influence on the Senate. The jury was selected from the senators, so how could Lepidus win? Not long after, Lepidus came here with 12 guards holding guns. In addition to him, there were many people who looked very familiar. Isn't that a freed slave of Nasica Scipio? I remember him. And the tall man, I remember he is the son of an exiled senator. Everyone was talking about it. It seemed that all the anti-Sulla forces had gathered under Lepidus. Lepidus could also get more support. He might even become the new leader of the civilian faction. Facing the discussion, Lepidus was calm and occasionally said a few words to the people around him. At this time, there was a commotion not far away, and then the crowd separated. Sulla, wearing a toga, eagle eyes and lion nose, strode over here. Sulla's appearance made the scene silent for a while. Although it had been 3 years, many people still remembered the massacre of that year. Following him was Levi, who was smiling. He didn't look like he came to attend the trial, but as relaxed as taking a picnic. Then there were a large number of senators, nobles, and knights. At least more than 100 senators appeared here to express their support for Levi. This made everyone sigh. Sulla was indeed worthy of being called Sulla. Even after resigning from the position of lifelong dictator, he still had unparalleled influence in Rome. Su stared at Lepidus coldly, and a hypocritical smile appeared on Lepidus's face. "I didn't expect so many of you to come. Although you are numerous and powerful, I believe that justice will be delayed, but it will never be late." Damn, this man is amazing. He put himself in the position of a weak person in an instant and won the sympathy of everyone. Livius secretly praised. Sulla's face was gloomy, and the others started to curse directly. "Lepidus, who do you think you are? If you hadn't been loyal to Sulla, you would not have been in this position now. You hypocrite, how many properties did you buy at a low price? Now you say you want to return the properties of those enemies of Rome. I have never seen such a hypocritical person as you." Listening to the curses of those people, Lepidus's face became ugly. At this time, a free slave stood up. "Everyone, please do not slander the respected consul Lepidus. He bought our family's property at a low price because he was entrusted by my master. Here is my master's handwritten letter." Just as he finished speaking, another slave stood up, "And our master also entrusted the respected consul to keep the property. This is our master's handwritten letter. Our master is willing to donate the property to the respected consul Lepidus for free." Hearing this, everyone was speechless. They didn't expect Lepidus to contact the owners of those properties. They should have reached a lot of deals in secret, and they have completely united under Lepidus. Thinking of this, some people's faces became solemn, as if they saw the dark clouds hanging over Rome. "How about it, are you sure?" Levi said in a low voice. "No problem," Cicero said disdainfully. With the help of Marcian, he found a lot of materials, and this little thing would not be difficult for him. Hortensius looked at Livius with some dissatisfaction. He had thought then Livius would come to him to ask him to be his defense lawyer. He had even waited for Livius to come to him and then do him a favor. He didn't expect that he would actually find Cicero. Could it be because he defeated him in the last court battle? Silence. Please keep quiet. Since everyone is here, let's officially open the court. At this time, the extremely fat Chief Justice Cassius Longinus said. The jurors took their seats one after another. The entire jury was composed of 50 elders of the Roman Senate. Levi and others also took their seats. Now, please invite the plaintiff's defense lawyer to speak. Dear Chief Justice, jury, and respected Roman citizens, just 3 months ago, something happened that shocked Rome. A lawyer who looked a little skinny stood up and spoke eloquently, launching a strong accusation against Livius. Levi couldn't help but curl his lips. This person was a very famous lawyer in Rome, but unfortunately he was far inferior to Hortensius and Cicero. After the lawyer finished speaking, the whole audience was silent. The plaintiff's lawyer has finished speaking. Now it is the defendant's lawyer Cicero's turn to speak, Cassius Longinus said, and gave Cicero an encouraging smile. Cicero immediately stood up, facing the numerous Roman people and noble officials in the cold wind. He was not at all panicked. After more than 3 years of studying in Greece, he has grown a lot. Dear Roman citizens, respected chief justices and jury, I think the plaintiff's lawyer is talking nonsense. The Roman Daily wrote that Consul Lepidus bought the property in Rome at a low price. I have some information, including the auction records and some official real estate information, which prove that the price when Consul Lepidus bought the property was much lower than the usual price. I object, Consul Lepidus. At this time, the plaintiff's lawyer said, but he was interrupted by Longinus before he finished speaking. Chapter 196 Declaration of War. The objection is invalid. Please keep quiet. The defendant's lawyer continues to speak. Longinus said with a dignified face, although his power is not great, some necessary conveniences can still be given to Levi. Levi glanced at Lepidus indifferently and found that his face became gloomy. You little guy, you still want to fight with me? Today I will let you know that your Uncle Lee is really your uncle. Thank you, respected Chief Justice. Cicero bowed slightly, and then he said to Lepidus, respected Consul Lepidus, have you ever bought a villa on the Palatine Hill at the auction for 82,000 dinars? Lepidus was silent for a while, and then said indifferently, yes, I bought it. As far as I know, the market price of that villa is usually more than 300,000 dinars. Cicero said, I think the respected Valerius Hortensius can prove this. He once planned to buy the villa for 300,000 dinars, but was rejected by the owner of the villa, Cassius. I can prove it, Hortensius said. I object. I think Hortensius's words cannot be used as testimony because he has a close relationship with Levi and they are both Sulla's people. The plaintiff's lawyer said hurriedly. The objection is invalid. Please continue to speak. Plaintiff's lawyer, the Grand Justice Longinus said. Thank you, respected Grand Justice. Consul Lepidus, do you agree that the villa is worth 300,000 dinars? Cicero smiled. It was the first time he enjoyed the advantage of having the Grand Justice fully support him. I agree, but I have been. Wait, you just need to answer my question. You don't need to say anything else. Cicero interrupted him loudly. I object. I think the consul should finish his words. The plaintiff's lawyer said hurriedly. The objection is invalid. Please continue to speak. Defendant's lawyer, the majestic Grand Justice Longinus continued. The plaintiff's lawyer couldn't help rolling his eyes. Do you dare to be more partial? In addition, you bought it for 50,000 dinars, Cicero said. With the help of Grand Justice Longinus, Cicero asked Lepidus more than a dozen questions. All the issues were based on facts and solid evidence. The plaintiff's lawyer kept objecting, but all of them were rejected. The plaintiff's lawyer was furious. But Lepidus looked at them with a sneer on his face. As mentioned above, Lepidus bought 12 properties worth 1.5 million dinars for 350,000 dinars, and made at least 1.15 million dinars from it. All of this is fully recorded, so I think the remarks of the Roman daily are completely in line with the facts and there is nothing wrong with it. On the contrary, he let the Roman people know about the bad deeds that the high officials tried to conceal. And this behavior should be encouraged. Cicero said slowly. I object. All the properties were entrusted to Consul Lepidus by the original owners to manage on their behalf. We have handwritten letters from the original owners of the 12 properties or their heirs to prove it. The objection is invalid. I hope everyone can see it with their own eyes. The objection is invalid. Although the Grand Justice Longinus kept roaring, the plaintiff's lawyer completely ignored his warnings and finished what he said. Seeing this, Levi couldn't help but cover his eyes. This Grand Chancellor is a pig. How could he be so stupid? Even if you want to curry favor with Sulla, you should at least be neutral. With so many people watching, we are suing for the damage done to the reputation of the consul by the Roman daily. Although Consul Lepidus did buy the property at a low price, his character is impeccable, and he is not a hypocritical villain as mentioned above. So I insist that Livius should apologize to Lepidus and finally stop the publication of the Roman daily. I object. Respected Grand Chancellor, can I ask the consul a few questions? Of course. The two sides were still arguing, but Livius was a little distracted. No matter how Lepidus and the others behaved, in fact, he was sure to win the case. The real winner of this case was not the Grand Chancellor, not the defense lawyer, but the 50 jurors. Not only did he know this, but even Lepidus knew it. But why did he insist on suing himself? After a fierce debate, it was finally time for the jury to make a conclusion. Now, please invite the distinguished jury to make the final decision on this case. Longinus said. Levi looked at Lepidus, who smiled slightly, as if he didn't care at all. The 50 senators discussed for a while, and soon the result came out. Now I announce that a total of 48 senators think that Levi should not apologize to Lepidus, and 2 senators think that Levi should apologize. So Levi wins this case, Longinus said with a smile. Hearing this, there was a buzz among the people. Levi felt something was wrong. Even if there were senators supporting him, it would not reach the level of 48 votes. Dear Roman citizens, I deeply regret today's case, but I have been mentally prepared for this. I am the consul of Rome, but my enemies are more powerful because they are Sulla's top generals. I am not facing Levi, but the entire Sulla faction. Lepidus, do you know what you are doing? Sulla shouted. Lepidus looked at Sulla coldly and continued, as a consul, I am still being bullied. How about you who have no power? If this continues, where is justice? Where is the law? There was silence in the civic square. Lepidus' words resonated with them. Even Lepidus couldn't win the lawsuit, let alone them. Just 4 years ago, an extremely tragic massacre took place in Rome. Countless knights with noble character and outstanding contributions to Rome were listed as public enemies without trial. They were killed, their property was confiscated, and their relatives were exiled. This is the biggest tragedy since the founding of Rome. Now is the time to correct this tragedy. Sulla looked at him angrily, as if he wanted to eat him. This damn bastard was slapping him in the face. Levi couldn't help rolling his eyes. Did you eat the massacre committed by Marius? He spoke as if they were saints. I have decided to convene a citizens' assembly. After 6 market days, I will propose at the citizens' assembly to recall all exiled nobles and return their property, restore the wheat law so that everyone can eat low-priced food, completely restore the power of the tribunes. Roman citizens, the future of Rome is in your hands. Please take action. Hearing this, the people exclaimed. The wheat law was a law passed before. Roman citizens were allowed to buy grain from Syria at local Syrian prices, and all transportation costs were paid by the treasury. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 197 Countermeasures. Sulla thought that this law won too many people's hearts for the plebeians, so he abolished it. Unexpectedly, he actually planned to restore this law. Livius looked at Lepidus in shock. He didn't expect that he would actually take action. He was going to fight Sulla to the end. He glanced at Sulla and found that Sulla's face was livid, his veins were exposed, and his eyes were red, like an angry lion. After saying these words, Lepidus looked at them with contempt, and then left here surrounded by the crowd. The scene was extremely silent for a while, and you could hear a pin drop. The Roman citizens looked at Sulla with fear, looking at the butcher of the year. Let's go, Sulla said, trying his best to suppress his anger. Everyone nodded and followed him to his villa. Livius told Aemilia to go back first, and then took Cicero with him, wanting him to broaden his horizons. Cicero hesitated for a moment, but finally followed. Although he admired his fellow countryman Marius, he was an aristocrat in his bones. Their grandfather and his father were both knights. Their greatest wish was to get a job in Rome. They were full of admiration and yearning for the great nobles of Rome. Their wish had always influenced his life. Asshole, asshole, asshole. Sulla didn't know how many things he smashed. He really regretted it. He should have killed that asshole a long time ago. Oh, and Pompey. We must do our best to stop him, Sulla said. Of course, Levi said with a smile. Returning all the land and real estate was like cutting his flesh. He couldn't agree to it anyway. That's right, we must stop him. Other senators also spoke up. They also made a lot of money in that massacre. How could they give up those benefits? But it will be winter in 6 market days, and the citizens outside the city will definitely not want to come to Rome at that time, so his chances of winning are very high. That's right, the Roman citizens will definitely be willing to eat the cheap Syrian wheat. Even in the cold winter, we must take action. I hope everyone can contribute money and people, Sulla said. Now I will assign the tasks. Levi, how many people can you mobilize? 40,000 people should not be a problem, but it may cost a lot to get them to come to Rome in winter, Levi said. Everyone took a breath of cold air. They knew that Levi was very powerful, but they didn't expect that he could easily mobilize so many Roman citizens. Let them all come to Rome before that day. Sulla looked at him deeply and said, no problem, but it requires enough money. Levi said, let's all get together for the money. No Labela, what about you? Sulla said, more than 200 people, or I can mobilize my veterans. Dolabella said with a blush, there is no harm without comparison. Compared with Livius, he is nothing. Crassus, what about you? More than 2,000 people, but I can pay part of the money, Crassus said with a gloomy face. Besides Livius and Sulla, he was probably the one who benefited the most this time. Of course, he didn't want to see Lepidus succeed. Everyone looked at him in surprise. They didn't expect Crassus to be able to mobilize so many Roman people. It seems that Crassus's strength has grown rapidly during this period. After a long discussion, they assigned their respective tasks. Some people paid money, some people provided people, some were responsible for organization, and some were responsible for providing venues. They were busy all day. It was late at night when they returned home. Aemilia looked at him with a worried look. How did you discuss it? No problem. They have thought of a countermeasure, Livia said with a smile. I am a little worried, Amelia said. What are you worried about? Livia asked. I am worried about another war, Amelia said. Livia sighed. Lepidus was ambitious and wanted to take this opportunity to rise to power. What he wanted was probably the same as Sulla, to become a lifelong consul. So the battle was decided. Let's go back tomorrow, Levi said. Hey, don't you care about this? Don't worry. There are people who are more anxious than me. I just need to be responsible for sending people, Levi said with a smile. Okay then, Amelia said. Come on, follow me, Levi said, holding her hand. What are you going to do? Of course I'm going to take a shower. Ah, how can this be possible? Amelia exclaimed. Why not? Couples are like this. Is it true? Amelia said with a blushing face. Of course it's true, truer than gold. Levi said, whether to go home and tell Julia, and sleep on her back. It would be better to add Cybele, so that this is the life that a slave owner should have, outside the Dragon City. Father-in-law, why don't you stay for a while? If you leave, Amelia will miss you. Levi showed a hypocritical smile on his face, but he couldn't hide the disgust in his eyes. Cumulus's face was full of black lines. He just wanted a little bit of your sugar and brandy at a low price. Is it necessary to be so stingy? If Levi knew Cumulus's idea, he would definitely curse. A little bit of cheap sugar? He wanted 3 tons of sugar and 100 barrels of various spirits. Not only did he ask for half price, but he also asked for credit. Levi had never seen such a shameless person in his life. If he was not his father-in-law, he would have had him kicked out long ago. Not to mention him, even Amelia couldn't stand it and had a fierce quarrel with Cumulus. Cumulus was so angry that he kept scolding girls for being extroverted and not wanting their fathers after having a husband. Amelia's performance made Levi very satisfied. In order to prevent the father and daughter from having a grudge, he finally agreed to supply him with sugar and spirits at half price, but he wanted to buy on credit, which made the father-in-law and son-in-law very unhappy. Yes, will you stay here for a while? I will miss you very much. Amelia held Cumulus' arm, her eyes full of reluctance. No, there are many businesses in Africa that require me to make decisions, and I have to go back quickly, Cumulus said dissatisfiedly. Although he loved his daughter very much, her words some time ago really hurt his heart. In addition, due to the frequent attacks of pirates, the prices of sugar and spirits in Africa have already risen to the sky. If he can transport this amount of supplies back, he can at least earn 100,000 dinars. With such a good thing waiting for him, how could he be willing to stay here? His biggest hobby is to make money. Chapter 198 Captured. When will you come to see me? Looking at his pitiful daughter, Cumulus' heart softened. After all, she was his only daughter, so he said softly, maybe in April next year, when the weather is good, I will come to see you then. I will definitely come then, and be careful on the road. I heard there are many pirates on the sea. Don't worry, I have more than 200 guards to protect me this time. How can those pirates be their opponents? Cumulus said proudly. The father and daughter talked for a long time, and finally said goodbye reluctantly. Cumulus set off for Naples under the protection of a large number of guards. Due to the recent rampage of pirates in Campania, Amelia asked Levi to send him more guards, and Levi would certainly respond to his request. Okay, don't be sad, it's not a life and death separation. My father-in-law is going to make a fortune. Levi persuaded with a smile. I know, I'm just worried. Now the sea is so uneasy, and he still has to go back to Africa. Isn't Rome good? Amelia said. Everyone has his own ambitions, and we can't force them, Levi said. At this point, he thought of Morris. Ever since his ship was hijacked, he had sent Morris to look for news about pirates. Compared to the official investigation, he trusted Morris's intelligence team more, and it was time to ask about his investigation results. 3 days later, after learning that Levi had summoned him, Morris hurried back to Dragon City. It was already late at night, and he wanted to report to Levi, but was told that Levi was in Amelia's palace. Just as he was about to go back, he ran into the chief steward Valens. Morris, you're back. How's the investigation going? Valens said with a smile. Things are complicated. I suspect that the pirates have joined forces with the exiled nobles, and they are likely to carry out more robberies against us. Morris said solemnly. Oh, what's the reason? The smile on Valens' face disappeared. Because the owner of the family has occupied the property of the exiled nobles, and he is also the #1 general under Sulla. This is a good and powerful reason, and Valens found that he couldn't refute it at all. Then what should we do? Add more guards to our transport ships as soon as possible, or go out to sea with other families' ships? Of course, it would be best if we could eradicate those pirates, Morris said. Unfortunately, it is too difficult. Rome is busy with internal strife and has no ability to suppress pirates. Even if someone wants to suppress pirates, the other faction will do its best to obstruct them, fearing that he will get the military power and march into Rome again, Valens said with a self-deprecating look. Yes, Morris agreed with this. Rome had internal strife before, but it had never been as cruel as in recent years, with massacres at every turn, making people panic. Has the master's father-in-law left? Yes, he went to Naples 5 days ago. What did you say? Naples? Morris said with a look of shock. Yes. What happened? Valens said puzzledly. Most of the ships we left from Naples were hijacked. I suspect that there are pirate accomplices in Naples, and that accomplices of a very high level, Morris said. The two looked at each other in bewilderment. Now things were getting serious. We must report this to the head of the family as soon as possible. That's right. In a dim room, Levi and Amelia were doing something indescribable. After a long period of indescribable exercise, with a long moan, the two hugged each other tightly. Levi had a smirk in his eyes, and he whispered sweet words in Amelia's ear, which made Amelia confused. Feeling that he had said enough, he whispered in Amelia's ear. No, how can you do that? It's too embarrassing. What's wrong with this? Others do it. Don't lie to me. Don't think I don't know anything, you bad guy, Amelia said shyly and annoyed. After saying that, Amelia twisted the soft flesh on her waist hard. Facing this natural full-level skill, Levi was really in pain. At this time, the voice of Pepper came from outside. Master, Morris has something urgent to report to you. He said he must see you immediately. Hearing this, Levi was shocked. If it wasn't an extremely urgent matter, he wouldn't say such a thing. I know, wait for me. After saying that, Levi left the quilt, put on his clothes and went outside. Soon he found Valens and Morris. Under the light of the torch, they looked particularly serious. Morris, you are back. What's the matter so urgent? Levi asked. Master, something bad has happened. Morris said, after investigation, I found that the officials of Naples are likely to be in collusion with pirates. Many of our transport ships departing from Naples have been robbed by pirates. What? The officials of Naples are in collusion with pirates? Hearing this, Levi changed slightly, but he realized something. Cumulus is in danger. What should we do? Should we send someone to chase him quickly? Morris said. Go immediately. Mobilize the guards of Dragon City to Naples as quickly as possible to see if he has set off. Levi said. Yes, master. Valens said. After Morris and Valens left, Levi frowned. These pirates were too abominable. Not only did they rob his transport ship, they even planned to rob his father-in-law. But Amelia couldn't know about this, otherwise it would be a big deal. In the turbulent Mediterranean Sea, a ship has become a hell on earth, with sailors lying in pools of blood everywhere, and some pirates laughing wildly. Sugar. It's sugar. We're rich. And brandy, the soul of delicious wine. Is this a steel sword? A steel sword worth thousands of dinars? The pirates were ecstatic looking at their spoils, and Camillus hid in a corner and howled like a pig being slaughtered. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I have money. I can give you money. Pyrrhus held a head that was still dripping with blood, and stared at the terrified Camillus with a playful look on his face. You are Camillus, Levi's father-in-law. Camillus couldn't help but be overjoyed. You know my son-in-law. That's great. Can you tell them to let me go? I will definitely let my son-in-law repay you well. Pyrrhus couldn't help but laugh wildly, and his laughter was filled with endless resentment. Yes, of course I know him. I am the son of a Roman senator. He occupied my land and my villa. Do you think I should thank him? Camillus was so scared that he couldn't speak. He didn't expect that there was such a grudge between Levi and this pirate. If he had known, he would not have mentioned Levi's name. Chapter 199 Blackmail. I think you misunderstood. I'm not his father-in-law at all. I just want to borrow his reputation. In fact, I have an irreconcilable hatred with that miser, Camillus said without any moral integrity, and then he cursed Levi, as if he hated him to the extreme. While cursing, he carefully observed Pyrrhus, but found that Pyrrhus had a playful face, as if he was watching a good show. Finally, his voice became smaller and smaller, and finally stopped. Scold? Why don't you curse? Pyrrhus said with his sword against Camillus' throat. Camillus couldn't speak for a long time, and cursed Levi in his heart. This time, he was heard by you, a miser. Since you have nothing to say, then go to hell, Pyrrhus said with a grim smile. No, Camillus said in horror, and at the same time, he shit and urinated. At this moment, a hand grabbed Pyrrhus's sword-holding hand. Pyrrhus looked back and found that it was Lysax, who proclaimed himself as a pirate general. Don't kill him yet, he still has value. Lysax said, you're right, I'm very rich, and my son-in-law is even richer. He can give you millions of dinars. Camillus was really scared. He said desperately as if he had grabbed the last straw. Millions of dinars? Hearing this, many pirates took a breath. How much money is that? I'm afraid it can be piled up into a small mountain. You are not lying to us. He has so much money? A pirate leader asked. Yes, of course, he has nearly 20 million dinars a year. This is what my daughter told me. Let me calculate for you. White sugar alone is more than 10 million dinars a year, plus strong liquor, steel swords, glass and true god paper, in addition to a lot of land output, a large number of other industries. Without so much money, how can he support 6 legions in the civil war? Camillus didn't care about these, and desperately boasted for Levi for his own life. Everyone swallowed hard. They knew that Levi was rich, but they never thought he was this rich. He was truly rich enough to rival a country. He is lying to you. I think we should kill him, Pyrrhus said. He was about to kill Camillus, but was stopped by a pirate leader. I think we can give it a try. Maybe we can make a lot of money, the pirate leader said. What do you know? Levi has been proposing to the Senate to let him lead troops to suppress pirates. Are you willing to let his father-in-law go? Pyrrhus said angrily. That's why we have to make a lot of money from him, the pirate leader said. I think you are blinded by money. Pyrrhus looked contemptuous. Aren't you also taking revenge on Levi because your property was taken away? The pirate leader said disdainfully. Pyrrhus couldn't help but get angry. These damn lowly, dirty, and extremely short-sighted pirates. If he didn't need them, he wouldn't be with them. Do you think so too? Pyrrhus glanced at Lysax. Lysax spread his hands and said, I can't stop you from getting rich. This is our tradition. Hearing this, the pirates cheered. Pyrrhus was so angry that he couldn't speak. Finally, he said, I promise you, we will regret it. After that, he left here. You are so arrogant even though you have become like this, the pirate leader said with contempt. You are right, he is a noble. Nobles are shit. I don't know how many nobles I have killed. Seeing that they were talking more and more outrageous, Lysax had to stop them. Okay, Pyrrhus is our partner. Don't say that about them in the future. And maybe we can become nobles in the future. Haha. Boss, you are right. I want to be a noble lord too. If I become a noble, I must buy hundreds of slaves and a big manor. With your ambition, look at Levi. He has tens of thousands of slaves and built a small city. But he is not a noble. Sooner or later, Ignoring their arguments, Lysax came to Camillus with a strange smile on his face. Tell me, how much should I ask Levi for this? 2 million dinars. His money is mainly fixed assets. I am afraid he can't take out more. Camillus thought for a while and said, if he said too much, he was worried that Levi would not pay the money. If he said too little, he was worried that these pirates would be dissatisfied. 2 million is too little. At least 10 million. How can he be worth 10 million? He will never pay 10 million for one person. The pirates all started arguing. Lysax thought for a while and said, let's just pay 5 million. Although Dragon City did not change on the surface, The level of alertness increased a lot. The swimming training of some guards was greatly strengthened. Swimming training is a compulsory skill for Roman soldiers. Because of the fear of being washed away by the flood during armed swimming, every Roman soldier must learn to swim. After physical exercise, some Roman youths would jump into the Tiber River for swimming training, take a bath and wash away the fatigue of the day. In addition, Levi sent some ships to search for Camillus's traces, but there was no news so far. On this day, Valens rushed over. "Master, someone found a letter in front of the Capuus in it, saying it was for you." "Oh, my letter?" Levi took the letter and read it, but he was furious after reading it. "Assholes. What a bunch of damn assholes. What's the matter? What does the letter say?" Valens asked. "My father-in-law was kidnapped by pirates. They demanded a ransom of 5 million dinars, and they couldn't bargain. If they bargained, they would cut off one of Camillus' fingers." Levi said angrily. He had never met such greedy pirates, a bunch of damn bastards. If he caught them, he swore to crucify them all. Valens was also stunned by the pirates' lion mouth. 5 million dinars. They really dared to ask for it. Then what should we do? Valens said. "We must find a way to rescue him." Levi said. "How to save them?" "Actually, I've been thinking about this for the past few days." "Go call Morris and Gita over. These things require their coordinated actions," Levi said. "Okay." Not long after, Morris and Gita came to Levi's meeting room. After learning about this, they were all shocked and shouted to give these pirates a good beating. Chapter 200 Black Pearl. We have a lot of information about the pirates. For example, they will target our transport ships, and they have connections with some officials in Naples, so I decided to set a trap for these. Levi said. "Trap? What trap?" Morris asked. "Recently, we have a ship going to Egypt, and I decided to let it leave Naples." Levi said. "Master, do you mean to lure them out?" Valens said. "That's right. Since they will specifically target us, why don't we take the opportunity to lure them out, then find their lair, catch them all in one fell swoop, and also take the opportunity to rescue Camillus?" Levi said. "I think this plan is okay." Morris said. "Maybe we can take the opportunity to lure out the traitor. During this period, we will step up the deployment of manpower in Naples, and we must find out who their accomplices are." Levi said. "Yes, Master." Morris said that Levi bought a lot of land in Naples and settled a large number of Roman citizens there, so he also has a very strong influence there. "Geta, your mission is to select elite soldiers from the Dragon City Guards and secretly transfer them to the transport ship. Don't let them be discovered. In addition, I will help you from other ports." Levi said. "Yes, Admiral." Geta said. "This battle is of great importance. We must catch the mastermind behind the scenes and never let them continue to be so arrogant." Valens, you go and contact those pirates. On the surface, agree to their request, but only ask for time to raise funds, and they must prove that he is still alive. This matter will be handed over to Valens. Levi said. "Got it, Master." Valens smiled faintly. There is a town on a deserted island in the Mediterranean. There is a stone wall outside the town. This is where pirates gather. In this era, the power of pirates is extremely rampant, and the number of pirates is large, at least more than 100,000. Lysax is one of the most powerful forces. Camillus was restless in a dungeon, and he had no appetite. After only half a month, he had lost a lot of weight. What he was most worried about was whether Levi would pay the money for him. You know, that was 5 million dinars. If it were him, he would never pay it. "Fatty, it's time to eat." At this time, a pirate's voice came over. "Okay, what do you want to eat today?" Camillus said with a flattering face. "It's still wheat porridge and a piece of black bread." "What good food do you want to eat as a prisoner?" the pirate said contemptuously, and then put a bowl of wheat porridge in front of him. Camillus had a bitter face. Every day, it was either wheat porridge or black bread. This meal was really unpalatable. "By the way, there is one more thing I want to tell you. Your son-in-law has agreed to pay the ransom for you," the pirate said. "What did you say?" "This is impossible." Camillus was shocked. He couldn't believe that Levi would pay 5 million dinars for him. That was 5 million dinars, enough silver to pile up into a small mountain. "Of course it's true, but they have to prove that you are in our hands, and they also have to prove that you are alive. The pirate said, "How can I prove it?" "Write this down and we will send it to Livius." Tullius the elder died, and Tullius the younger decided to mourn for a year. "What is this?" Camillus said in confusion. "This is the words they specifically asked you to write. If they can recognize your handwriting, they will naturally know that you are still alive." The pirate said. "Well, then," Camillus thought for a while and said, "if he didn't write it, these pirates would never let him off easily. It's better to be honest and avoid physical pain." After seeing him finish writing, the pirate took his note to a hall in the center of the town. Lysax was discussing things with his pirates while enjoying fine wine. "So, Levi really has a ship going out to sea?" Pyrrhus said. "Yes, their target is Egypt. It is said that after the last transport ship was hijacked, the goods there are almost sold out, and they need to replenish them quickly." A pirate said. "How much is the goods worth?" Lysax asked. "It's not clear, but according to their estimate, the market value is at least 300,000 dinars. The pirate said. No wonder even Scipio was tempted by the method of making white sugar. "These things are so profitable." "How much is the value of the things we robbed from him?" said a pirate leader. "At least 1,000,000 dinars, Pyrrhus said with a smile. "I'm afraid he is so heartbroken that he is about to cry." A pirate leader laughed and said, "That's right. Then should we rob?" "Of course we should rob. Wouldn't we be fools if we don't rob so much money?" Pyrrhus said. After saying that, he looked at Lysax, who was in the first place. After all, he still had the final say here. "Boss, this is the note he wrote," the pirate said. After taking the note, Lysax took a look and let the pirate go. "Since there is an opportunity to make a fortune, of course we can't refuse it," Lysax said. "We did it." On a dock in Naples, there was a lot of noise. Slaves carried boxes one by one to the Black Pearl, a large ship with 5 oars. It is said that the name of this ship was given by Levi himself, and no one knows why it was given such a strange name. Its bow is equipped with a copper ram and a huge crow drawbridge. The crow drawbridge is the most classic naval equipment of the Romans. In the First Punic War, the Romans defeated the Carthaginian navy with it. It is actually a kind of stringing equipment fixed to the bow mast with ropes, and iron nails are installed on it. When approaching the enemy ship, the Roman soldiers will untie the ropes, so that the crow drawbridge will fall directly on the enemy ship, and the sharp iron nails will be nailed directly on the deck of the enemy ship by inertia. Then the Roman soldiers will land on the enemy ship through the crow drawbridge, so that they will turn the naval battle into their best close combat. In fact, the Black Pearl is a warship, and Livy has never thought of concealing this. Many of his transport ships are warships. Aeneas lowered his head and hid his head under the wine barrel, with a slave collar around his neck. It was a terrible feeling, but fortunately he only had to endure it for a short time. Cage shouted at the slaves, asking them to hurry up so as not to miss the departure time. At this moment, a dock official came over with a flattering smile on his face. "Excuse me, is this warship the Admiral's Black Pearl?" End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.